All right, good morning, everybody. My name's Randy. So I'm here to talk to you this morning about a couple different things. To give you a background on myself so you understand I'm somebody that you can listen to, actually. I've worked for the state in one manner or another for the Air Resources Board for over 35 years. I spend most of my time in enforcement, writing tickets and doing inspections. I hated that stuff. So I went into an avenue where I could talk to people about how to understand the rules and hopefully comply with the regulations. So that's what I do today. That's what I've done for most of my career. About 2.5 years ago, I retired. They couldn't find anybody that could speak to people really, so they asked me to come back part-time, and that's what I do now. This morning's presentations are going to be more generalized presentations. I think I've got a few slides to show you here. We've got a timetable for a bunch of things that are going to happen. The first thing in this room, you're going to be getting presentations on general topics. We try and go into as much as we can within the time limits that we have, but be aware there's probably more information you're going to want beyond what's presented here. We do have hard copies of everything. If you haven't picked that up, there's a place to go get that at the registration table, so I would recommend that you pick up any copies of that you need. If at any point you want to talk to somebody one-on-one about a particular topic related to the material we have here today, the room right next door has experts in the field. You can register for a time slot to speak to anybody about any topic that we have here today, and they'll spend 10 to 15 minutes going over your particular circumstance. That's something that we only happens in places like this when we do these one-stop events. So take advantage of it as much as you possibly can. The presentations, like I said, are going to be happening from now until probably about noon or 1 o'clock. So if you don't have to stay for all of them. You can stay for whichever topic you want and say goodbye to us or whatever you'd like. You can stay for the whole thing. It doesn't, it matters to us, but we want you to get what you need to get out of this whole presentation. There are some things that you need to be aware of, some housekeeping. Please, during the presentations, we have tried to allot time for everybody to ask questions, but it's after the material is already given. You know, when I present things, I sometimes will kind of fault myself on that and answer questions in the middle if they happen to be people's questions that are a lot of questions about the same thing. But it's easier for us and easier for you and everybody to understand if you wait until the slides are through for that particular presentation before you post a question to one of those. Now, what else have we got here? We do have a survey that we would like very much for anybody that's willing to fill it out before you leave today. The purpose of the survey is to give us an understanding of how we can make this better for the future events. We won't be able to act upon them today necessarily, but you will be helping because anybody that attends one of these later on. We have these events actually on an every other month basis somewhere in California. So the survey is very important to us if you want to give us some constructive criticism or you guys were great or whatever you'd like to write on it, okay? Let's see. I already talked about that part. Let's go through where the water is. You saw the water over there out back. Take as much of that as you want. We already talked about the one-on-one tables, and if anybody here has a bilingual issue or you need somebody to speak to you in either Spanish, I don't know if we have Punjabi here today, but we do have people that have bilingual ability, and they can explain whatever they need to within the regulatory time frame in that language. We do have for parking. Now, this may not be 100% true because I think it changed recently. When you guys came in here, was the gate up? No. Okay, so my understanding is that if you had to take a ticket, we do have a validation where you can scan this as you go through the gate, so there's not going to be a parking fee. That's my understanding. You need to make sure you take care of that before you leave, obviously, otherwise they're going to want you to pay to get outside the gate. Right? If you'd like a paper version of this, we have those printed out so you can take that with you, and I believe the kiosk will just scan both your tickets QR code and then the QR code that we give you. And if you happen to forget those codes, there will be a call box button there that you can use and let them know that you were here for the the CARB one-stop, and they still should be able to take care of the parking issue for you, okay? Any questions on anything that we're going to do today? Yes, sir. Oh, son of a gun. We will have somebody get on that. Michael, did you have something you want to say about it? Michael's our do-everything person.
Yeah, so if you are exiting, we have little slips. So essentially, you take a picture of that QR code and then hold up your phone to scan it on the exit. Yeah.
Okay.
But one thing I wanted to add, the ticket that you initially got, scan that first when you were entering, and then take a picture of that, or if you're walking out, there's a board out there, you can take a picture of that same QR code, or you can take a slip that's at the registration table, and then essentially you scan the first ticket, and then you scan that QR code second when exiting.
Fantastic, thank you. One thing I did forget, and Tommy, I need to ask you about this. Am I on video at all here? So do I need to be over there? Okay. All right. Some of you may not be aware of this, but you heard me asking Tommy a question about this. We are broadcasting this live at the same time that you're here today. We have people on Zoom right now that are listening to the same information. So we will have questions typically come in online as well as in person. I will handle the ones on in person, and we have some people that generally help them online. But just be aware that you are online while this is going on. The whole thing is happening that way. Let's talk about the one-on-one. There's all kinds of different topics here. I've got a list here. It's printed out. When you go into the one-on-one room, there's a desk. I was just there a few moments ago. Myself or another man named Boons can register you for talking to one of the people at one of the tables. The appointments are in, I think, 10-minute increments. So doesn't always work out to be that little amount of time. If nobody's waiting behind you, you can talk to them as much as you want. If there's somebody waiting for their appointment, then we might have a problem if you stayed too long. You might want to make another appointment there. But we do have a lot of topics, so make sure you get all the information you can from one of these people. And let's talk about the background and history. These are the topics that we're going to cover today. The regulatory program, I'm sure most people in this room are aware, obviously, that ARB has a lot of regulations that deal with emissions and vehicles. It's a history of regulations that goes back all the way to 1964. In the last 10 to 15 to 20 years, there have been probably 20, 30 different rules on different types of equipment and different operations. And I'm sure many of you fit into more than one of those categories. First of all, I apologize for that. We'd like to handle it so everybody only has one portal that they have to go to deal with everything, but that's just not the way it's worked out. That's not the way the regulations have been written, and there are several different reporting systems. I'm going to explain one when I talk about the Clean Truck Check program that's just for that program, but we have had a number of people who have gone into that, registered and taken care of whatever the system's asking you for, and then believed that they were in compliance for one of the other systems. Be aware that that's not necessarily the case. You might have to deal with multiple reporting systems to make sure your fleets are completely compliant. Right? Having said that, let's get into the Clean Truck Check program. Clean Truck Check is more or less a smog inspection program. I am fully sure that everybody in this room has to deal with the Bureau of Automotive Repair's biennial or annual smog inspection program, depending on your circumstance, where you have to bring a vehicle into a smog check station and have it tested. This program, Clean Truck Check, is a similar program. In fact, it was created to be a sister program to that bar inspection, but for heavy-duty vehicles. Up until the point this program was made, there really wasn't an inspection program for most heavy-duty vehicles. Some, but not all. This is bringing it so that there will be essentially no commercial graded vehicle operating in the state of California that doesn't go through some emissions testing. This is just for the heavy-duty vehicles. Now, it's a three-part regulation. Okay. The first part requires you to, if you have one of the vehicles, as I describe it in a moment, that vehicle has to be reported, which means you, as the owner, have to create an account in the reporting system and put the information about the vehicle in that reporting system. So that's number one. Number two, because the way the legislature wrote up the permission or requirement for us to create this program, there is a program fee for each vehicle associated with this program. So I'll talk more about that in a minute, but that's the second leg of this. And then the most important leg of all is the testing. Now, many people ask me, why do we have to test our vehicles? I take care of my truck. I believe you. You do take care of your truck, but not everybody does. And there's no way for us to verify the people that aren't taking care of them without capturing the entire set of trucks that are out there. That's why people who have the most immaculate trucks in the world that are taken care of better than anything else in the world still have to go through the testing procedure. Okay? Clean Truck Check, as I said, is just a smog check program. Now, who does it apply to? I'm going to say this more than once. One of the things I learned a long time ago is the more I say something, the more I reiterate something, the more it comes across, especially if it's an important point. So I'm going to describe to you the vehicles that are in this program. If you're operating a vehicle, a truck, that is over 14,000 pounds, gross vehicle weight rating, on our roads in California, there is a high likelihood that that vehicle is part of this program. What is GVWR? Does anybody know what GVWR is? We have several. Nobody, we got a few people, okay. Yeah. Gross vehicle weight rating. This is a number that is assigned by the manufacturer of the truck. It doesn't change. Once it's assigned, it stays the same, and that's why we use it, because it's not something that you can typically change for most vehicles. Where do you find it? For most trucks, it's going to be on the driver's side door jamb. There will be a little tag there that's put by the manufacturer that has several different weight listings. One of them will say gross weight or GVWR or GVW. That's the number that we want you to know about. That's the number that will put you in or keep you out of this program, okay? Let me back up. There's only one vehicle, one type of vehicle that meets that 14,000 pound requirement and on California roads that will not be in this program, and that's a vehicle running on gasoline. You might say, why are gasoline trucks exempted from this? They're not exempt. They're exempt from CTC, but all the gasoline trucks are going to be handled by the Bureau of Automotive Repair through the regular smog inspection program. They won't be part of this. This is for all the non-gasoline type trucks. Here's the examples of types of trucks. We've got regular trucks, motorhomes, buses, cargo vans, tow trucks, essentially any type of commercial vehicle that you can think of that is that weight class and not running on gasoline. One of those categories you just saw was motorhomes. This is something relatively new. If you own, and I'll say this more than once, this is one of the reiterations, if you own a motorhome, recreational vehicle that's operated in the state of California and registered in the state of California, and it's over 14,000 pounds and not running on gasoline, it is part of this program. So it is, even though it's a personal vehicle, it's not held for commercial purposes, it is regulated by this program, so keep that in mind. It still has to go through the reporting system, it still has to go through the registration fee, and it still has to go through the testing. I'll talk more about that in a second. One of the questions that we get a lot related to motorhomes is, what about my Sprinter type van? You all know what a Sprinter type van is? Okay. A lot of people are saying yes. If you don't, it's that relatively new thing where people are taking pretty good sized vans and converting them into a type of motorhome. And many of those things run on gasoline, some of them run on diesel, some run on other things. There are two questions you need to be aware of if you want to know if that vehicle is part of this program. Number one, is it over 14,000 pounds? Number two, what's the fuel type? Because if it's gasoline, it's not in. Anything else, and it's in, okay? Step one, I've said it a couple different times, reporting. The reporting system for this program is called CTC Viz. Now that stands for something. It's written up there. I don't need to read all slide to you. You can see it. CTC Viz is a reporting system that resides on the California Air Resources Board website system. It's free to access. It doesn't cost anything to create an account. I will show you what it looks like in just a second, but you have to go in there if you have one of these vehicles or more than one of these vehicles that meets the constraints that I was talking about, and get your particular fleet, even if you have one truck, we call it a fleet, registered in the system. Now, one thing. If any of you have fleets that are already in the truckers reporting system, remember how earlier I said there's more than one reporting system? If you have a fleet that's already in the truckers reporting system and you're cussing me out because you have to re-enter all your information, then you're not going about it the right way, because we can pull information from truckers and bring it into CTC. You don't have to necessarily retype everything. There is a way to do that. I would recommend that you, if you have that ability, that you do it that way rather than trying to retype everything that's in there. Okay? This is what the landing page looks like for getting into several things related to CTC, but especially the reporting system. You can see it right there where it says login or create an account. Those are the places you're going to start. If you haven't created an account, obviously the login one is where you need to be. If you have, remember your credentials for logging in, even though you have 10,000 of those for everything else, and log in, okay? Now, there's some other things that you need to be aware of. Number one, this whole website is optimized to be used in Microsoft Edge. If you're not using Microsoft Edge, does it work? Absolutely. It just doesn't seem to work as well because it's optimized to work in Edge. So if you're having problems, one of the first things I'm going to tell you, or anybody else is going to tell you to do, is to open it up in Edge and see if that resolves whatever issue you have. The second thing I like to point out about this page is the helpful links. If you ever have a question, you've got many different options. Obviously, you came here, so you can get some questions answered here. But before you ever come to a place like this, or before you call or send an email, I would suggest that you go to the helpful links there, because you would not believe how much information we can fit in one small space on another page there. Anything you can possibly want to get out of this system will be listed in that helpful links page. Right? The reporting requirements. Now, I've already gone through this a little bit, but I'll say it again for purposes of reiteration. You're going to need to enter your personal information or your company's personal information in order to create an account. That's step number one. Step number two is entering the information about the vehicles that you have that are part of this program. Step number three is going to be the paying of the fee. I have slides on that in just a second. Yeah, we already went. Adding or deleting new vehicles. I did want to say something about that. So we have enforcement people here today. We have enforcement people that operate throughout the state of California doing enforcement actions. We have office people, we have field people, all enforcement. One of the things that they have access to is every one of your accounts that you create in CTC Viz. And whenever they're doing enforcement, they can't go by what you say necessarily. They have to go by what you've reported to us, because in the reporting process, you will have to sign off that a little box that basically says that you're putting everything in there true to the best of your knowledge. So whatever's in this reporting system is what enforcement is going to use, and then they will also verify in the field what they see. If you make a change to your fleet, please, 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 at some point, hopefully within 30 days, nobody's going to come after you if it's not 30 days, but hopefully within 30 days, change it within the system, okay? That way the enforcement people, whether they're in the office or in the field, will have the correct current data to work with, and you won't have an issue with them if that's the case, okay? This is what the reporting system looks like. This is when you put your information in here, it's going to ask for all the stuff I showed on the right here. This is for vehicle information when you add a vehicle. One of the things I like to point out about this particular screen is the VIN number. So you can type in your VIN number, and if you've typed it in and you believe it's 100% correct, but the system doesn't accept it, and you go check it and you have typed it in correctly, there's a little box right next door that says irregular VIN. If you click that, you'll be able to go through the reporting process without having to wait for somebody to call you and figure stuff out. And if it turns out that the VIN's incorrect, we can change that later, right? But at least you can get the rest of the reporting done. Okay? Step two, the annual compliance fee. I don't really like to spend that much time on this. There's 3 slides in here. They're part of your handout. I'm not actually going to go through them because they're examples of what it looks like, but I will tell you a couple things about the compliance fee. Number one, it's for every vehicle. Number two, it's every vehicle every year. And number three, the fee changes based on the consumer price index. So this 2025, it was, I believe, $31.18 per vehicle. This year, I'm not sure what it's going to be. We haven't had the consumer price index change, but it's likely to change, and I don't know if it'll go up, but most likely I'm going to say that it's probably going to go up. Be aware of that, because we have had people who have registered, they've put their information in there, they paid the fee for the first year, and then the next year they didn't bother to do that, and that's when the system's going to tell you that you're out of compliance, basically. All right, let's go past that. This is just for your information. You've got it in your handout, so is that. Let's talk about the compliance certificate. We have a lot of people that ask for this, and I understand that you want something in your hand that says, I am compliant with this program. That's what this is. It's a piece of paper that basically lists your information and that the fleet is compliant. What do you need this for? First of all, it could be just because you want it. That's the only thing we need, the only reason we need to have it there is because you want it. But for a lot of people, if you're working for somebody else, there's a part of this regulation that requires those people hiring somebody with a truck to make sure they hire compliant fleets. Now, in order for them to do their due diligence, they either have to check your vehicles to make sure you're compliant, or they ask you for a certificate. That's what this is really for. If you get caught up in an enforcement action, our enforcement officers don't need this. I told you a few moments ago, they have access to the reporting system. So you can hand them a certificate. All that's going to give them is the information about you in the system. They're still going to look at the system. They're still going to verify what they see in the truck, okay? But remember, if somebody's asking you for a certificate to hire you, you have to go through this process to get it. All right, now, I talked about guidance, FAQs, and more information. You can scan this code. It's in your handout again. It's a QR code that will take you to a whole bunch of information in addition to what we're doing here today. We have videos that you can watch. We have additional websites. Just an unimaginable amount of information. That seems to be what the state does, is create a lot of paperwork and stuff. But we have it all in one place when it deals with CTC and everything you need to know about that. So please take advantage of it. Step number 3. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about this because this has created some confusion. The testing procedure. You say I have to get a test. What do you mean by test? What is this test? How do I do this test? Who does this test? Right? First of all, it's an emissions test. So we are trying to get the information from your vehicle about the emissions that the vehicle is outputting. There are 2 types of tests, but let's talk about deadlines first. For most people that are in this program, you're going to have 2 tests per year this year, and you had 2 tests last year. The first test is going to be the month that your registration is due, by the end of that month. The second test is 6 months apart from that. And the notification you're going to get is an email from the CTC Viz system as to when your vehicles are due for testing. Next year, 2027, for most commercial vehicles, it's going to go to 4 times per year. All right? Now I say for most because there are 2 types of vehicles that will not, actually 3 types of vehicles that will not ever go to 4 times per year. The first type of vehicle is a motorhome. Motorhomes are designated in the rule as 1 time per year, and that's it. I know it's not really what you want to hear anyway, but that's the only time you're going to have tests is once per year. Number 2 is ag vehicles. If you happen to be in a farming situation and you have vehicles that are owned by a farmer, used in the operation of farming to either collect the farm produce or to take that farm produce from the farm to the first point of processing, that's what's defined as an ag vehicle. You can designate your vehicles in the system as ag. It requires you to fill out something called an attestation, which is just a form that you're signing that what you're saying is true. It'll be uploaded and verified, and then your vehicle's ag, and you have 1 test per year. Okay? The third vehicle that will never go to the 4 times per year is any vehicle that doesn't have an engine that is 2013 or newer. I'll talk more about that in just a minute, but those are OBD compliant vehicles. All right, emissions compliance. So Actually, I already talked about that. So let's go. Oh, one thing I didn't say is that this is connected to DMV registration. So I think it's a daily basis. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it's a daily basis. The computer system at our agency, which when your testers submit a test, it goes to us. We connect that information to DMV, and then they update their systems from there. It's a little different than the Bureau of Automotive Repair smog check program, because that program, there is a duplicate signal that goes direct from smog checks to BAR and to DMV at the same time. They've got it better integrated. It's been around longer. Our program is not that well, I'm not gonna say that. Our program is not completely integrated with DMV, and they have as of yet not allowed us to do that. So it has to go to us, then to them, okay? That process can take a couple days sometimes. So if you don't get an immediate response at a DMV location, you can email us. We will look in our system and make sure that it's gone, or if there's an issue, we work through those issues. But that's the protocol. Now, the testing itself, what kind of testing are we talking about? There are two types of tests. One called an OBD, and the other is a non-OBD. OBD stands for onboard diagnostics. That's a long phrase for computer system. It's just the newer engines have a computer system that monitors and runs everything in that engine. But in specifics, for our purposes, it monitors the emission control devices that are part of that system. So when you have a vehicle that has a 2013 or newer model year engine, and I'm going to focus on that for a second because this has been confusing as well. You can tell me that you have a 2013 truck, but that's not the engine. The engine and the truck are almost never the same. In fact, more than 90% of the time, if you have a 2013 truck, you have a 2012 engine. So be aware that we're looking for the engine because the engine is what's certified to emissions, not the truck. Right? So 2013 or newer model year engines, which typically came in a 2014 or newer model year truck, have OBD that is standardized. That means every manufacturer has to make it the same so that all the codes are the same, so that if we take a data file, it gives us the same information. And the test is nothing more than downloading a data set from your truck that gives us that information. You don't have to go through an actual emissions test. It's just a data set that's downloaded from the computer. That's an OBD test. Those are the trucks that are going to go to 4 times per year. Okay? The non-OBD, this is the 2012 and older engine. It might have an OBD system, might not, but it's not standardized, so it doesn't count as far as this program is concerned. Those are going to require an actual emissions test. And I know some of you in this room have either done this or had your trucks go through this process. Because what it is a technician or a tester will put a monitoring device in the stack of the truck. The truck is required to be in park or neutral, and somebody's in the seat, the truck is on, and somebody's going to ask you to push on the gas 3 times while that testing device, that monitor, takes a reading of what's coming out of your stack. Now, it's looking for something called opacity. And opacity is nothing more than the black soot. Now, you may think you don't see any, but these devices can read down to a fraction of a percent. So even if you don't see it, it's there. Obviously, I'm sure everybody has seen black soot coming from a diesel truck. If you do, there's a good chance that vehicle's not in compliance because anything you can see is probably beyond the opacity level that's allowed by law. The opacity levels are going to change based on the year of the vehicle. If you have an older vehicle that does not have a diesel particulate filter, you may have up to 10% opacity allowed by that truck. If you have a vehicle that has a filtration system, and if you want to know model years, that'll be 2007 model year engine and up. Your opacity limitation is 5%. So anyway, that's the test, except for one thing. The non-OBD trucks have to do that test, and then the technician has to do what's called a visual inspection. Have any of you been to a smog inspection station with your vehicle and you've seen the technician with the clipboard walking around and checking things off, looking underneath and looking here and checking things off? That's a visual inspection. What the technician is doing is he's going through and he's looked at the information on your engine. It says what components are supposed to be on that engine for emissions control, and they're supposed to verify, first of all, that they're there, and second of all, that they appear to be hooked up and functioning. That is what the visual inspection is. That has to happen for all the older vehicles, anything 2012 and older engine, right? Does that make sense to everybody? Right, good. I'm sorry? Once a year for those, no, actually, unless you're ag or motorhome, they'll be twice per year even for that vehicle, okay? The only vehicles that only have once per year are motorhomes and ag vehicles. All right. Credentialed testers. I've mentioned testers a couple different times. What is a credentialed tester? Is anybody in this room a credentialed tester? Good. We have some people that have gone through it. Fantastic. You're probably tired of hearing my voice because I'm the one that voiced the videos for that, okay? What it is an online video program. I think there's 6 modules where I read through and show you a set of slides with information. And then you got to watch those. They're on YouTube, and you can sign up and become anybody can become a credentialed tester. There's no cost to it, right? So you watch those videos, and then at the end, there's a link to take you to an exam. You take an exam, and I believe you have to pass with a 70% or better. Is that right, Steve? 80%, okay. 80% or better, and then you're credentialed for 2 years. And a credentialed tester technically can conduct either type of test. I'll talk more about technically in just a minute, but that's what a credentialed tester is. I'll reiterate this. Anybody can be a credentialed tester. It's just a free online video-driven training program you have to go through and pass to become a credentialed tester. Okay? What if you can't find one? This has been a big problem for some people. One of the questions we get a lot. I need a test, and there's nobody in my area. Well, so when people become credentialed testers, one of the things that happens is in the registration for becoming a credentialed tester, there's a little checkbox that they can click on that asks them whether or not that you want your information publicized as a credentialed tester. If they click yes on that, then that person's information, at least what city they're in and things like that, and their phone number, is put on a public database that you can search. You can go into the opening page where you log in, and it'll take you to a credentialed tester. It's on, it's on the tester list right there, and you can hire a credentialed tester. Now, it doesn't look like I have the page come up, but that is going to bring up a form where it asks you for information like city, state, zip, because we do have testers out of state, by the way. Whatever information you put in, it's going to spit out, which means if you put in a single zip code, it's only going to provide you the testers for that zip code. If you put in a particular city, same. Put it in the state, you're going to get everybody in that state, obviously. But so be careful and be cognizant that if you are from Manteca and there's 20 zip codes here and you only use one zip code, you may find all the testers in Manteca. You need to use every zip code in order to do that, right? All right. The devices. This is the technicality. I said anybody can be a tester. Anybody can become credentialed. Again, that's free. It's online. Anybody can do that. Once you're a tester, the other half of the equation is you have to use certified testing devices for the test that you're doing. And those there are device lists that have gone through our certification process. I don't know how many there are, but there's at least 3 to 5 different ones for OBD, where it's just a tool, a handheld tool that you connect to the OBD and it connects to the computer, and it reads fairly quickly that the truck's in compliance or not, and then automatically sends it to ARB. That's the credential tester's job, is to get that to happen. Okay? The non-OBD, there are several units that you can purchase that are certified to do that as well. They're a little older on the scale. They have the device that goes into the stack, and then there's usually a handheld device that's connected to that that will give you a printout. But if you don't have one that's certified, the test is no bueno. It's no good. So if it were me going to get a test, I would do a couple different things. First of all, I would ask the tester for their credential. It has to be within the last 2 years. If they don't have a current one within the last 2 years, it doesn't matter how much they charge you. It doesn't matter whether your truck passed. If they're not currently credentialed, the test is invalid. The second thing I would tell you, because I ran into this up in Reading a couple weeks ago, is that if somebody tells you they can do a test over the phone, they're lying. That cannot happen, at least not legally. And we have had people who have done that, and they have gotten their certification, and their vehicle fleets have been listed as compliant until we find out that in our data, we can look at all the tests from each tester, and we can see anomalies where it's the same vehicle, same this, same whatever. I'm not going to tell you what all they are, but we can find out whether or not somebody's doing zero tests. And then we go back and we retract their credential. And we've been doing that. So, but I know it's a thing, all right? Okay, that's enough of that. Let's talk about, the enforcement's going to talk about this in just a second, so I don't want to spend too much time, but I did want you to understand that we do have field staff using a different set of tools. And Steve, are you going to be the one that presents us? Okay, Steve can tell you about this later. He has the exact same slide. It's just a portable monitoring system that can be used out in the field to do screening. And he'll explain it more, but we use it all over the state of California. So if you happen to get into one of our enforcement actions, you're likely to see that upside down L-shaped thing, and you'll see the trucks driving underneath it. That's what it is. Okay, they're doing a grab test of your emissions. Responsibilities to ensure accuracy. Because we cannot inspect every vehicle by ourselves, we do require that anybody that puts their information into our reporting system go through an attestation that essentially says, I'm telling you the truth. And I swear on a stack of Bibles, we don't have a stack of Bibles, don't worry about that. But I'm swearing that what I'm telling you is the truth. That attestation is legal, which means that if we find out that something you put in there was purposely put in incorrectly because you thought you could subvert the program or circumvent part of it, again, we can check anomalies and we can check different things to tell that something's incorrect, and it will come to light at some point. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but it will happen, okay? Just be aware that you are telling us that what you're putting in there is truthful, and that if it comes to pass that we find out that it wasn't and it was done purposely, there are penalties associated with that, okay? Buying and selling trucks. We have had some issues with this, so I want to make sure you're fully aware that if you purchase a vehicle that's going to operate in the state of California and that's under this program, you need to ensure that it is part of the system and that hopefully it's current with its certification. So I would be double checking that for a vehicle that I'm trying to purchase. If you are selling a vehicle, there's a little bit different onus, and that's on you to make sure the transfer within the reporting system happens. So if you sold a vehicle today to him and you didn't go in and remove it from your fleet, regardless of what he does, it's going to show up in your fleet until you take it out of your fleet. Ensure that, because we have had people who have gone off and done things, and the original owner that doesn't own it anymore winds up getting tagged because they didn't take it out of their fleet. So just be careful with that. Outreach. Well, you're involved in outreach right now. Are we doing a good job? Okay, hope so. I hope you get some good information this morning. I hope that you get all the information you need, but if you don't, we have several avenues for more outreach. I personally do a CTC webinar about once a month. I have one next week on the 4th, so if you aren't already aware of that, we're going to have a webinar that has the same information. Tell your friends and your relatives, and we can register you if you have If you want the information, I can give it to you before you leave here today to register for that. It's the same information. There's one additional thing, and that is we have live questions online at the same time. So we're gonna have some questions this morning, but that's live online. And we've got email. So at this point, what's my time look, Michael? Okay. I can open up for a few questions. Do we have anybody in the room that has questions about this program that I can help you with besides what I've already gone over? Yes, sir.
So with the gasoline engine, right, you smog them once a year. This one is going from 2 to 4 years, 4 times a year.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's a little bit overregulated.
Yeah. I'm not sure I can argue against that. When the program was put in place, it was determined that because of some of the things we were seeing, in other words, breakdowns and people not taking care of their equipment and things like that, that we would go minimum 2 and then to 4 to make sure that we had a full picture of the vehicle throughout its useful life. That's why it went that direction. I understand that it's onerous, and it will be. There's one thing I did forget to mention related to the 4 times per year that might help. And it's only if you use a third-party telemetrics firm. If you don't know what that is, anybody here that operates trucks commercially knows that there are companies that you can hire. They will put a device in your OBD port, and they will do all the reporting for you. They'll capture your use of time, everything, and they'll send that to DOT, and they'll do the reporting for you. Okay, and that's perfect, especially if it's the same company that is certified to do this, because some of those companies are certified to do the exact same reporting for those vehicles. So if you do have that kind of telemetry system set up, it's possible that the twice per year or the 4 times per year you'll never have to deal with, because the company you're paying to do it is dealing with that for you, okay? Or, yeah, dealing with it for you. Yeah.
At the same time, though, it becomes more of a cost, right?
Yes. I understand. It's not going to change, and I don't have any other information that I can give you to say that. It's at the time and place to have affected that was about 4 years ago when this was going through the regulatory process before it actually became, a rule and a regulation. I'm not saying it can never be changed, because there is another process that can happen. I'm saying I can't do anything about it right now, and it is what we're dealing with and what you'll have to deal with unless it ever changes. And that's probably not the answer that you wanted, and I apologize for that, but that's what the answer is. We had a question over here.
How can we find a list of those companies?
You mean the credentialed testers?
Things that go inside the OBD?
Oh, so that's a good question. So on the CTC website, there are multiple links, one for the credentialed testers, but there are also lists for certified devices. And if you click on that particular link, it's going to give you both the testing devices themselves and the telemetric companies that are certified to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Out of state,
Yeah, what about them?
we used to buy a hydrovac from out of state Colorado, and they wanted an emissions test. Would that just be a CARB test, or
The Colorado company wanted an emissions test?
the finance company?
Okay, so,
Registry.
yeah, so that's, your finance company has the legal right to ask you for that information, and that would be this emissions test, yes.
Okay, and then one other one is, when it comes to rentals, we rent a lot of hydrovacs.
Okay.
Is that up to the client, or is it up to the vendor to CARB it? Because we've had long-term rentals, and I don't know if they've ever been
Yeah,
CARBed.
so the question is whether it's a short-term or long-term rental, the person that I'm not going to say go after, but it's the person that's responsible is the registered owner of the vehicle. Okay? Uh-huh. Yes, sir.
So I do testing. I have a customer who just bought 6 brand new trucks.
Yeah, go ahead.
He bought 6 brand new trucks.
Right.
They got to be tested before they can be licensed, right?
Sure. Yes.
So I go down to the dealership. He's got them all licensed. He's got them all set to go, ready to go, numbers on them,
his signs and everything. I test all 6 trucks. I go back onto the website to check. 2 trucks passed, 4 aren't ready. The 4 that aren't ready were the ones that were piggybacked on the back of the 2 that drove here. How they piggyback trucks.
So that they didn't have any actual mileage?
They didn't
or
have any
anything?
mileage. So
Okay.
now he's in a quandary because he can't test them because, I mean, he can't get licensed because they're not tested. He can't test them because they're not licensed, and he can't license them.
Yeah, that's a vicious circle.
Yeah. So what is the answer?
Well,
He's got
I'm-
4 trucks sitting at the dealership he can't drive.
Yeah, well, the answer is it's got to go through a test cycle before the test will pass it. Yeah, but actually, that's not entirely true. There are 5-day passes that you can get through the system to drive a truck, where it would not have to be in compliance with this program. Now, DMV, I don't know about their particular process, but what he's talking about there is the fact that the OBD systems have codes that sometimes cannot be reset until you have a certain number of drive cycles. And you may have had a fault code that takes 100 miles. You may have had a fault code that takes 25 miles. You may have a fault code that can be reset immediately. Their different fault codes have different cycle times. If the cycle time has not been completed, that code is going to show up in an OBD test as a fault code, and it will fail the test because of that. So be aware that you could have a perfectly compliant vehicle that has a fault code that has not reset yet. And any technician that knows OBD should be aware of what those fault codes are and how to reset them and how many cycles are required to get that through. If they don't, then you might want to look for a new technician, because that's part of what their job is, to deal with that. Any other questions? He was first here.
What does enforcement look like? Do you have just CTC enforcement officers?
What does enforcement look like? Is it just CTC? And the answer is no. Our enforcement officers, first of all, are trained to test vehicles in any of the rules that we have. Second of all, they have field access to every one of the reporting systems that we use. So when they pull a vehicle in, they will test it for everything that they see in front of them. And it covers many regulations. Question back there.
Vehicles that are coming out of service. So as we go through and start replacing vehicles, as they come out of service, I'm from the city of Merced, those vehicles aren't sold right away.
Sure.
Can they be taken out of service on the system and still show that we're not using
Yeah.
them anymore? Because I've tried to do that, and they said that I have to show proof of sale.
Yeah, so I don't want us to put you off, but that's a question that has to be answered by the reporting staff. I believe there is a way for them to pull it off as a temporary thing and then bring it back in. I'm not fully aware of exactly how they do that, but there is a way for that to get done. Okay, we got time for one more or no? He raised his hand first. I'll talk to you later. No, he was there.
So my question is that we have testers popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
There are more testers than trucks right now in California, look like. So is this self-certification is just like a same self-certification that the ELD companies had or the truck schools has? Why CARB is waiting to things or making these things worse than before they start working on them or start catching them? So is there any certificate? What certification means is nothing. They can go online with a few hours, they can be a tester.
Correct.
And so why we are making this a problem bigger, then tomorrow we'll start start working on it, and we'll try to catch it like, right now we are doing with the ELD, we are doing with the truck schools. It's the same thing. And, each and every trucking company has their own testers.
Correct.
Each and every permit guys have their testers. Are they qualified to do these things or just like 2 hours training?
The whole reason for doing so, you got a multifaceted question that I'm probably not going to be able to answer completely today, or even in the next 20, 30 minutes. But the intent behind the certification or credentialing program was to get as many testers out there as possible, as many people that we could help understand the rule, and then the second half of that was to force them to use certified equipment. You can't have one without the other. So What you're saying is a lot of testers out there that aren't really qualified to do the test, and I'm sure there are people that can go online and pass and aren't qualified to do the test. I know that happens. But the backside of it on our end is we continuously go through the credentialing program, update it, check who's certifying, if they're providing tests for us, and making sure that what they provide us still meets what we're looking for. And we go back through the list, and if they don't, then those people aren't going to be credentialed anymore. It does take some time to catch up to it, so I get what you're saying. It's not perfect. But yeah, no, I know. That's why I brought it up. That's why I'm telling everybody in this room, if somebody tells you they can, there's a good possibility that at some point in the near future, that truck's going to go into uncertified status because it was tested by somebody like that. Nobody's going to be able to do it on FaceTime legally or over the phone legally. That's just not, that's not something that is legal.
So how about, is there any way to report or any way to tell?
Oh, yeah. So I don't know what the number is. There's I'll let the enforcement talk about that. He's up now. There is a number that you can call to report anything like that. With that, I'm going to have to cut it off.
And then quick announcement, we have a representative from California Trucking Association, Jody Williams. If she'll be floating around if you want to ask her any questions, but we'll move on to enforcement.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few things. So a lot of these questions are applicable to what we do. And so we're able to provide information on what this means. And, we're able to provide information on the clean truck checks, ensuring that you are remaining compliant. And then also what you were saying is to get on the front lines of getting your voices heard before laws go into legislation. And so come and talk to me if you have questions on advocacy, compliance, any of this.
All right, my name's Steven. Is this working? Can you hear me? Okay. I work in the diesel program enforcement branch of the California Air Resources Board. So yes, we are enforcing clean truck check, and we have for probably about 2 years now. So like you saw this slide before with Randy, this is what we call the remote emissions monitoring. And we'll set this up either in screen trucks to bring in for inspection. Sometimes we'll set it up just to collect data on trucks. This also has an automatic license plate reader, so it'll take the emissions sample and it'll also take a couple pictures of the truck and date stamp it and all those things. We also have a couple of these set up permanently across the state. Some of you might even drove through one today if you brought your commercial truck. So. You know, they're out there. We use this data. We try and pick off the trucks that we think are probably going to have compliance issues. And we use this to screen something that might have some high emissions and try and pick those trucks to look at. We also use this to send out what we call a notice to submit letter. So if your vehicle is detected as being potentially high emissions, we will send you a letter either via hard copy or via email. It's very important that once you get that letter, you read it and respond, because you have a 30-day window to essentially fix it. If you don't get back to us in 30 days, you don't fix it in 30 days, we send out a notice of violation. And you're still going to have to fix it, but you might have to fix it and write us a check. I don't think, that's not a good thing. So whenever you get those letters, don't let them just sit there. Make sure you start a conversation with us. If you need more time to fix a truck, or the truck's out of state, or you're not near a tester, those are all things we'll kind of work with you on, okay? But try and start that conversation as soon as you get that letter. There's certain things you guys can do. I would tell you, the first thing I always look at when I look at a truck is to see if that check engine light is on. That would be the first thing I do. So if you guys are looking at trucks, your own trucks, tell your drivers, your operators, hey, if that check engine light, we call it a mill, comes on, let's get that taken care of, because that'll be the first thing I look at when your truck comes in. You know, if you're having a problem with sensors or any of those other things, try and keep up on those things, because we're pretty good at finding problems with trucks. When it comes into my station, we'll look for those things. So try and stay on top of those, and definitely tell your operators if they're noticing something to tell someone and try and get those things taken care of. Obviously, don't tamper with your trucks. Whatever YouTube videos you might see or heard from, removing this or sticking something in that and blocking this off, it's a problem. And you know, we're able to pretty well figure things out. So I would tell you, if you have a tampered truck, you know, get it untampered. Along with the tampered trucks, I'd tell you, if you're buying any trucks that are used, to really be thorough, because that prior owner may have done some tampering and removed some stuff, and it can be a long road to get that truck back into compliance. We conduct roadsides. Sometimes it's at the CHP inspection facility, sometimes it's at an ag facility. Many times it's just a wide spot in the shoulder that we can pull over a truck or two and safely get out and conduct an inspection. So, you know, we'll always ask for the drivers to provide their license or registration. We'll have CHP with us at all times. And we'll work with you on whether we start with asking you to open up the hood or just leave your engine on. It kind of depends on, you know, if the engine's already on, we might just start our test there with the OBD test. If the engine's off, we'll just have you come out and open up the hood and try and get you on your way. You must submit to an inspection, though. You know, the operator, driver must submit. If they refuse to have an inspection done, I've done this for 18 years, I've only had it happen one time. The driver will get a citation, and you're still gonna have to get that truck inspected. So we're pretty patient. You know, sometimes the driver says, I'm in a hurry. Sometimes the driver says, my boss told me not to do this. More times than not, I've sat there and talked to the owner of the company, explained what's gonna happen, and we end up doing it. Like I said, 18 years, it's only happened to me one time. There's a referee program as part of Clean Truck Check. So it's similar to your smog check referee. You know, once you're referred, you can be either referred by the enforcement division for maybe looking at data, maybe you have to clear a citation, all those things. There's a whole website set up to get that process started. There's a lot of homework you have to do ahead of time of filling out information to submit and making your appointment. There is no charge for the referee. There's referees set up across the state. I can't tell you how many, but they're, you know, not too far away. Again, there's no charge for this. Randy kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, you know, hiring the tester that is credentialed. And also, you know, there's some things that will go on with some of the testing that can be problematic. You know, I know that we've probably in the last month, they sent out a lot of emails to remove some testers who are maybe doing some fraudulent type of testing. So, you know, it's kind of a cat and mouse thing at the moment, but we're getting better at tracking those down. We remove their credentials, but definitely, you know, some of these, it'll eventually come back because it's all in the data. We do look at all those test results. Okay. This is a roadside inspection here.
California Highway Patrol pulls over a big rig to begin a heavy-duty diesel inspection. The CHP and California Air Resources Board do these all over the state because big diesel trucks and buses are the biggest emitters of cancer-causing black carbon. They are also major sources of other harmful pollutants, as well as greenhouse gases. Here you can see a typical heavy-duty truck inspection. The inspectors have pickup trucks that carry mobile inspection stations and offices. The office has laptops, printers, emission testing equipment, and anything else the inspector needs to perform a diesel vehicle inspection. Once the truck has come to a full stop, the inspector lets the driver know he is conducting a compliance inspection for the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. California's Health and Safety Code gives CARB the authority to conduct these inspections. The inspection begins with a check of the dashboard and the cab of the truck to see if there are any illegal modifications or any malfunctioning indicator lamps. This includes the check engine light and diesel exhaust fluid light. The inspector also checks the diesel particulate filter lights to make sure there are no problems with the filter. Once that inspection is complete, a visual snap idle test is conducted to determine the opacity of the vehicle's exhaust. If the opacity is close to the standard, full snap idle tests will be conducted using an opacity meter. Once the opacity of the vehicle has been assessed, the inspector asks the driver to turn off the engine, open the hood of the truck, and conducts the inspection of the engine itself. The inspector looks for a number of things to determine if the truck is in compliance with the diesel regulations. They verify that the engine has a legible emission control label. They check for missing, modified, or additional engine components that could indicate tampering. The inspector also checks to make sure the truck has a diesel particulate filter. If there's no filter, inspectors will check CARB's database to see if the truck is registered for a provision in the truck and bus regulation that allows it to operate without one. They also check the database to make sure vehicles are properly registered for the drayage rule, the transportation refrigeration rule, or the off-road rule, as appropriate. They may also test the urea content in the diesel exhaust fluid. Finally, the inspector looks for aerodynamic equipment on both the tractor and trailer to make sure they're compliant with the SmartWay program, which helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve fuel efficiency. If the truck is compliant with the heavy-duty diesel regulations, it's sent on its way. If the inspector finds a violation, a citation will be issued on the spot. Most inspections take less than 10 minutes.
Any questions? Yes.
That red sticker you put on the windshield, is that the normal CSVI or
No, it's
is it
specific
special?
to our enforcement, and we'll put that sticker on so we won't pull that same vehicle over that quarter. So,
Okay, so it gets updated every quarter then?
yeah, well, it's not, only if we, like, if we're,
Only if you
if
pull
we're
it over.
working in one location for 2 days, and that truck's gonna be coming through there for 2 days, we'll put that sticker on there so we can wave it through and not inspect it the next day.
Okay, I've not seen one of those yet.
Yeah, you know, sometimes it's the last couple days of a quarter or something, we just won't put them on. But they are, you know, we still have them. Any other questions? Yes?
Why do you feel you have the need to do roadside inspections if we have to do this every quarter?
You know, that's a good question. Well, things do happen with trucks. We have trucks that are not in clean truck check that we stop. We have trucks that are too old to be on the road. We have trucks that are tampered that come through our inspection. But we do check clean truck check every time to make sure they're in there. If they're have a test due, we'll try and tell them. If I do an onboard diagnostic test on your truck, that counts as your periodic test. So you might get a free test out of coming to my inspection lane. But that was a good question. Yes. You had a question behind?
Yeah, I did. Are you still going to continue on in October 27 to do 4 times a year?
Am I going to do it
No, I mean, is the program,
for a clean truck check?
yes. In
As
October
far-
20,
Is that the date?
October 2027 is
Okay.
supposed to be 4 times a year.
Okay. Well, I'll let the panel up here do that. I'm kind of on the compliant enforcement side of things, so ask me on October 28th. 2027, okay. Any other questions? One more? Is it a 2013 and newer engine? I believe the answer is yes. But there's some of the program staff experts that'll be up here to answer those. I'm just kind of doing the enforcement side. All right, thank you.
Oh, here we go. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Okay, great. So my name's Lisa Kilidikis, and I'm with California Air Resources Board, and I work on fleet engagement and market advancement and fleet engagement. So we try to inform fleets about what CARB is doing, and I'm going to talk about our Drive Forward initiative. Let me make sure I'm going, okay. So before I dive into the Drive Forward initiative, I want to talk a bit about how we got here. So despite federal attacks on California's environmental authority, the California Air Resources Board and California in general is not backing down from its goals to protect public health. So last year, Governor Newsom signed an executive order reaffirming California's commitment to deploy zero-emission vehicle technologies to improve air quality, especially in communities disproportionately impacted by poor air quality. This was followed by a series of listening sessions called ZEV Forward, which brought together expertise from public, industry, multiple state agencies, and these sessions provided an opportunity for leadership and different sectors to exchange ideas and explore ways to advance clean vehicle technology in California. So building on the foundation of ZEV Forward and the executive order, the California Air Resources Board has launched the Drive Forward initiative. So this initiative aims to reduce air pollution, improve public health through the development of light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicle and fleet regulations. So outreach, market support, education, and complementary programs and policies such as Clean Fleet Connect and the California Clean Construction are all important parts of the Drive Forward initiative. So as we consider new regulations, we want to hear from you. So it's important that we work together to develop programs that support clean transportation for all. So now I want to talk a little bit about why it's so important that we continue to push for new regulations and programs to reduce air pollution. So the first reported incidents of smog that occurred in the 1940s in Los Angeles with visibility cut to 3 blocks, and people suffered from burning eyes and lungs and nausea. And even when I grew up there as a kid, I felt those effects as well. So since the first vehicle pollution standards were adopted in the 1950s, California has made tremendous progress that has led to continued improvements in air quality, and that's even when the population and the number of vehicles on the roads have increased. But even still, millions of Californians still breathe unhealthy air every single day. So this exposure contributes to higher rates of asthma, heart disease, and even premature death. And California also has a clear obligation to continue reducing emissions. So under state and federal clean air laws, we are required to protect public health and meet air quality standards. And under our climate commitments, we must reduce greenhouse gas emissions to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. Any delay in action will only make the problem more costly and more difficult to solve. So the question isn't whether to act, it's where our actions can make the biggest difference. And when we look at the data, one sector clearly stands out. So we know that trucking and truck drivers are a very essential and important to California's economy. Trucks move nearly all goods that Californians rely on every day, from food and medical supplies to construction materials and consumer products, and they support millions of jobs across the state. Although trucks only make up 7% of the vehicles on California's roads, they are responsible for 20% of transportation-related greenhouse gas emissions and nearly half of all transportation-related NOx emissions. So NOx, or nitrogen oxides, are harmful air pollutants that come from burning fuel in engines. And NOx contributes to smog and unhealthy air and can trigger asthma and heart problems and other respiratory illnesses. So this chart illustrates the disproportionate impact of trucks on our air quality and climate goals. So as you can see, their emissions are far out proportion to the numbers, which is why reducing truck pollution is one of the most effective ways to protect public health. So given this information and knowing we need to continue to reduce harmful pollution in California, staff at CARB are working on potential new rules for heavy-duty and light-duty vehicles. So today I wanted to talk more about the potential heavy-duty rules. So this slide outlines the core principles that will guide our heavy-duty rule development. So as staff shape this approach, they are focused on delivering real health benefits where they're needed most, particularly in communities that have long borne the brunt of poor air quality. The heavy-duty team is particularly interested in incentivizing early action by manufacturers, given the urgency to make up the lost emission reductions because of the illegal federal actions. So at the same time, staff knows that progress must be achievable. That means designing strategies that go beyond the status quo, but are grounded in what's actually feasible, both from a technology standpoint and in terms of cost. Staff also want to make compliance as straightforward as possible. If the rules are too complex or burdensome, they risk slowing down progress. Simplicity helps everyone, from fleet operators to enforcement staff. Fairness is another consideration. A level playing field means ensuring that no one, whether a small business or a large operator, is unfairly advantaged or disadvantaged. That's essential for both equity and broad support. And finally, staff are mindful of ripple effects and want to avoid any unintended consequences. So this slide outlines the scope of any new potential heavy-duty rulemaking effort. Staff are exploring a focus on vehicles over 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight rating in California, ranging from delivery vans to big rigs. These potential new regulations could affect manufacturers, owners and operators, and entities that hire trucking services. So more workshops and listening sessions are planned throughout the year, so there's still a lot of time for input. So in addition to any potential rules, staff is looking to adopt incentive programs and voluntary initiatives that encourage zero-emission vehicles, or ZEVs. We'll be presenting more about incentives this afternoon, but I wanted to share a voluntary tool that is currently under development. The Clean Fleet Connect program is an upcoming interactive web tool that provides a publicly available list of fleets that have proactively adopted zero-emission vehicles. The goal is to increase visibility for ZEV fleets, helping to connect them with hiring entities to expand business opportunities. The tool will be open to on-road medium and heavy-duty fleets with voluntary participation, so we expect Clean Fleet Connect to launch in mid-2026. So as we develop new standards, strategies, and programs to reduce emissions, we want to get input from those impacted the most. That means building on what we've already done, but doing more and trying new approaches to reach fleets like yourselves, communities, and partners. Our outreach efforts have begun with educating our different audiences and interested parties on the possible rulemakings and how to provide input. We want people to understand what's coming, the timeline, and the ways they can get involved early in the process. So as we move forward, we'll continue gathering input that will help shape the proposal itself, ensuring the regulations are practical, effective, and equitable. We plan to partner with organizations and agencies across the state to reach more audience and strengthen connections with people and fleets that the rules will affect the most. Here's a quick overlook or outline of our outreach strategy and timeline. So we have been working on developing materials as a starting point, and then as we move deeper into engagement over this next year, we will have, as I mentioned, more workshops and engagement opportunities. So here's a QR code to access the Drive Forward website, so you can learn more about all our different activities coming up throughout the year. And then as I mentioned, we really want to hear more from all our different audiences who will be impacted by these potential rulemakings. So you can subscribe with this QR code to our email list and get notifications when outreach opportunities are available to you. So with that, I want to thank you for the time today, and we'll be in the room across the hall or next door if you want to ask any more questions, but happy to take a question right now as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're really early in the development process, so I would just have to say we'll have more workshops coming up, and we had one in early December. So through the website, you can find a link to the slides and kind of get an idea, but we're very early in the process. So right now is the time to kind of see what we're doing, and we'd love to talk more to you about your thoughts on this. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Just ask, are the utility companies involved in this kind of process as far as communication when infrastructure obviously is going to be the largest factor here? So are we in communication with them and their partners in this as well?
Yes, we have a whole team that works on infrastructure here at CARB with utilities, with the infrastructure folks, and that definitely needs to be worked on together as we roll out these different programs and rules. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hope to talk to you later.
Good morning, everyone. We'll be going into our panel discussion. We'll have our panelists come up. My name is Michael Sidhu. I'm with the Training and Community Support section in the Mobile Control Source Division. So I'll be moderating this portion of the workshop. It's a panel discussion on ZEV fleets. So this morning we are joined by Wes Lowe from Kingsburg Truck Center, Jeff Rieger from EV Project for Act 2 EV LLC, and then we have Jose Darty from Zero-Nox and Brian Madowin from OK Produce. So each panel member will provide a brief presentation, and then we'll have a moderated discussion with a set of questions that we have at the very end. So the process of engagement for public and private fleets is continuous and ongoing in a long-term effort. As you can see from this depiction, there are many elements and partnerships that must be formed as companies grow their zero-emission fleet. This engagement construct goes to the purpose of the panel discussion today. And so these are our panelists. We're going to go, each one of our panelists do have a presentation, so we're going to get right to it. We'll start off with Wes Lowe, and just let me know, click the next slides.
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. All right, my name's Wes. I'm with Kingsburg Truck Center. You can go to the next slide. I'll try to breeze through these slides pretty quick. So we're located in Kingsburg, California, about 30 miles south of Fresno. We build and sell gas, diesel class 2 through 6, utility bodies, flatbeds, lift gates, dumps, cranes, vocational vehicles for our customers in agriculture, cities, schools, construction, industries like that. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So more recently, we've gotten into the EV space. In about 2022, I was building trucks for the local Mack dealer. My Mack sales rep went to work for a zero-emission company, and they asked us to build bodies for zero-emission vehicles. So kind of fast forward into 2023, when the ACF rule kind of started rolling out, I went to my business partners and said, hey, there's 50% of municipal purchases have to be zero emission that are 3/4 ton or bigger starting in '24, and I don't see any options out there for our customers. Everything is built for final mile delivery. Nothing's out there for vocational. So we started working with C-Tech, building utility bodies, Rugby, making a class 4 dump, working with Van Air to do EPTO, and you know, how do you run an air compressor? Do you have a diesel generator on an EV truck to run this stuff? So we started building just zero emission equipment to go with the vehicles that we're selling. Go to the next slide. There we go. Mike, I wanted to say thank you for putting on the training, because you know, selling electric vehicles it's tough as it is, as politically charged as the topic is. It's a tough sell, but you know, we built all these trucks, and my business partners kind of put me in the hot seat, like, hey, how come these aren't selling? And what we found is that educating the consumer is very expensive and time consuming. So having events like this where you can learn about, 1, the regulation, and 2, about the technology. So that's a picture of a class that we put on last year. I just put on a class yesterday at the Visalia Convention Center for driver training operations, because everybody knows what a gallon of gasoline is, but not many people know what a watt is, let alone a kilowatt or a kilowatt hour. So how to drive the vehicles, how to operate them, where they work, where they don't work, that type of stuff. Go to the next slide. They asked me to talk about TCO. So this is a TCO that was sent to me in 2023, and this is how I was supposed to go sell to the customer. And I look at that, and I see, you know, $250,000 CapEx cost, and I see the baseline of $90,000 is my base. It's 6.1 years, and I'm supposed to save $144,000. I told my sales rep, prove it. Like, that makes me want to gouge my eyes out. It's too complex. You can't sell off of that. So go to the next slide. So I wanted to talk about TCO just on real world operations from real customers, real people. You know, if you're a publicly traded company, you can look at those TCO reports, and you know, you can have an analyst look at it and give you a report. But when you're a FedEx ground operator and you have 5 to 10 trucks in your fleet, you're driving, delivering packages during the day, doing payroll at night, you know, you don't have time to look at that. So go to the next slide. This is a route in Fresno in FedEx. So they're delivering from South Fresno to North Fresno. God, I can't read anymore. So important thing to look at here is they're driving about 46 miles on this route, and the energy that it consumed was 57 kilowatt hours. So that's important, because we all know miles per gallon, but how many kilowatts does it take to drive a mile? So my efficiency on this, the number on there is 1.22. And so they like to talk about miles per gallon gasoline equivalent, and I think that's tough to quantify, right? So I want to pay attention to that 1.22 efficiency, and that's loaded on a FedEx route. We'll go to the next slide. And I'm going to try to do this math in real time. I'm only half Chinese. My dad's the real mathematician, so I'm only half as good as he is at math. So to compare apples to apples, we have to get what's my cost per mile, right? So basically, I'm going to take my fuel price divided by my efficiency, or miles per gallon. So in a comparable truck in a Class 6, you're going to get that 7.3 liter V8 Ford motor, or that 6.8 liter V10, roughly about 8 miles per gallon. Average cost per fuel when I did this was about $4.75. So my cost per mile is about 53 cents a mile in a comparable Class 6 step van for FedEx delivery. So when I do that math back on my efficiencies, 1.22 on the route that we did in Fresno, average cost per kilowatt from PG&E is about 30 cents. I'm going to multiply that across, and I'm getting about 36 cents cost per mile on EV, so about 30 cents. Not great, right? But it's still a cost savings of about roughly 30%. But what I see is that rates are different all across California. So I see in Sacramento as low as 13 cents a kilowatt, and as high as 40 cents in San Diego. So I wanted to ask my customer, so I have a customer in Richmond, California. It's a FedEx terminal. They've committed to go 100% zero emission by 26, and they're doing it. I said, what are you paying per kilowatt? And so he said, In Charge and FedEx have negotiated not to increase the rates, or mark up the rates, excuse me. So he's paying about 15 cents a kilowatt. So if I take 0.15 times 1.22, now my cost per mile is about 18 cents. So when I tell a FedEx driver I'm 18 cents cost per mile versus 50, now we're talking, things are clicking. So it's kind of, I'm starting to get natural adoption without a regulation with my FedEx independent service providers. We'll go to the next slide. So this is just a screenshot of a text message from one of my drivers or contractors. He owns 23 zero-emission trucks. He's converted his whole fleet in Richmond to zero-emission. And I just asked him, I just said, hey, what's your TCO, gas, diesel versus electric? And so in his text message, he goes, for $1, we drive almost 1 mile with an ICE vehicle. That's pretty easy math, 1 for 1. And for zero emission, $1 gets us about 3.2 miles. So about 3 times more efficient as far as costs go. My experience with FedEx, I think I have about 50 trucks that we've sold into FedEx. The average FedEx route is about 60 miles a day. So if I just kind of do that math, it costs 60 miles. If I'm driving 60 miles on an ICE vehicle, it's going to cost me $60 a day to operate that vehicle. And then with 3.2 miles per dollar, so if I just take 60, divide by 3.2, it's going to cost me about $18.75 to operate an EV based on his metric that he's getting from Ground Cloud. That's the software that they're using to operate in FedEx. So I take that, I'm going to times that. They operate 6 days a week, times 52 weeks out of the year. Let's see here. Is that right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing the math wrong. Cost savings, so $18.75 minus $60, a cost saving of $41.25, excuse me. So I'm going to take that times 6 days a week, times 52 weeks out of the year. That's $12,870 that he's saving per truck by switching to going EV. And for a small business, that's a lot of trucks. He's operating 23 trucks in his fleet. So I'm going to times that times 23. So it's $296,000. That money's in his pocket as an independent contractor. So now I'm talking with him where everything's clicking. And with the CapEx cost me at like that $200,000 mark. Well, with the state incentives, I'm able to get his truck on the last year's incentives to about 45 grand out the door delivered to him in an EV, as where his baseline when he's buying a Ford F-59 is about 90 grand delivered to his door. So I have a 50% cost reduction in CapEx, and my OpEx is about 3 times more efficient. So now I'm starting to get that natural adoption with our customers. Every business isn't FedEx, I completely understand that. EV doesn't work in every application, but there is a lane, and it's like, there's some guys that run 250 miles a day on FedEx. EV is not going to be for you yet. It's not there yet. The technology, battery density is not there yet, but it definitely does have a lane, and guys that are open to it that, that can take advantage of some of the incentives that are out there are doing pretty well, actually. So go to the next slide. I'll skip this. This is a picture inside the terminal in Richmond. So every parking stall that's on the belt, there's about 250 parking stalls, has a level 2 pull-down charger from the ceiling. So for the drivers, they no longer have to go to the fuel stations to fuel up. There isn't an oil change. You're not cleaning out DPFs. There's none of that. So basically, they pull in every night. The vehicles charge overnight while the vehicles are unloaded, and then the night crew loads the vehicles, and the drivers go out the next day. So it's been a pretty good use case for us with FedEx. I don't want to take too much more time up, but I'll close with, I'm a big believer in testing the vehicles out before you buy. So we typically run, 1 week test, 2 week test with FedEx. With Vestas, we did 90-day tests. Make sure the vehicle works. I know in the EV space, a lot of people are just selling off PowerPoints, but we like to provide the trucks to our customers, let them test it, and then if it doesn't work, we're just honest about it. Yeah, it's not going to work for you, because I'd rather not sell you a truck and it not do the job as opposed to selling you a truck and it'll work, because you're going to tell a lot more people I bought this EV, and my sales guy lied to me and it won't do the job than if it does. So before you buy, I'd say test, 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 and the other half of the battle is infrastructure and charging. So that's another feat. I would say the TCO doesn't work on this if FedEx wasn't paying for the infrastructure. So I heard infrastructure earlier. What's the chicken or the egg? You need the infrastructure, 100%. So we'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Wes. Next, we'll go into the Act 2 EV slides, and Jeff Rieger will give a presentation.
I'm just going to stand up.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Go for it.
Okay, there we are. Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Rieger from Act 2 EV. Go ahead and switch it. Yeah. Okay, we're general engineering contractors specializing in infrastructure. Our job is to get these in the ground and running. That's what we bring to the party. In order to do that, we have partners in all kinds of, in every area that you might need in your particular installation. Consulting design, I mean, I think Wes did a great job at kind of crunching numbers, talk about ROI and that sort of thing. So we help using, say, some of those models. Utility coordination, that's a huge deal. If you don't have enough power in your building or in your facility, you got to have somebody that can work with PG&E to make that happen. So we do that. We do permitting, installation, maintenance and service, the O&M. And then we help out with rebates and incentives, but I can see there's all kinds of resources here that probably more than what we could provide. We'd be leaning on them, I think, if we were doing it. So just as a background, I used to be the owner and president of Black Diamond Paving and Concrete, and we had a fleet, not nearly as what I imagine what you guys have, but we had 10-wheelers and vans and pickup trucks and cars and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of feel your pain a little bit when it comes to, we didn't get to do EV because I sold before that was a thing, but we did a little bit of the, we had to go to Tier 4, that was fun. So we had to offline a lot of our diesel trucks to make that all happen. So anyway, okay, next. Okay, I apologize if this is too basic. What your level of EV knowledge could be, this could be a quick review. I'll just run through this very quickly. There's really 3 types of charging. L1, which is 110 volts, low power equipment, you know, service little, like lawnmowers and those sorts of things that charge overnight. Level 2 is really the mainstay. That's, from our perspective, that's where the, that's what Wes was talking about, where everybody's plugging in at night. That's really where the bulk of this is going to be. And then L3, and I know Brian's going to talk more about his implementation on L3, so I'll leave a little bit to him. DC fast charging, like Tesla superchargers. Again, you need a 480 volt 3-phase service with a lot of power to make that go. So, quickly, level 2 overview. You're looking at, again, these are rough numbers. Okay, don't hold that to account for everything, but you're going to run at about a 6,000 to 10,000 per port, maybe less depending on how many you're putting in economy of scale. Again, much lower capital than what you're going to do for L3s. Can be done sometimes with your current service, but you may have to get to PG&E or your utility company to provide additional services, and I know they have lots of programs to make that happen. Again, active load management can increase your efficiencies. When it comes to when we're going to plug in a day, who gets the power, when they get it, how much, what's the state of charge of each of the vehicles, using software to manage all that. Quick example, if you have a 400 amp service dedicated, doing 88 kilowatt continuous charging, if you had 10 L2 chargers, you're going to get 88 kilowatt hours per vehicle. Again, these are ballpark numbers. And then if you've got a vehicle that goes between 2 and 4 miles per kilowatt hour, you're going to get about 200 miles, 250 a day, somewhere in that range. So, okay, thanks. L3, it's a big kahuna. Pros, it's very fast charging. So Brian, how fast were your chargers? You got one?
Well, we've got three 180 chargers, but we don't have our final ones in place or in construction right now.
Okay. All right. Again, for high mileage, longer duty cycles, again, you're going to go to about 80%. You're going to go between 20 and 80% of the charges, typically, for battery life on current lithium-ion batteries. Battery tech, just so everybody knows, it's changing all the time. You got semi-solid state. You got different solid-state batteries that may be coming in 27. So again, these are today's kind of numbers. Again, it does require sometimes extensive engineering coordination with utilities to pull that off. For example, the Tesla, like I told Brian, I'm going to use this as my example. If you have now this would be for a charging hub, most likely, where you're having people coming in and out all day. You might have a megawatt service to get this if you have a big enough facility. In my example, you have 210 vehicles running at 250 kilowatt. You can get a 250 kilowatt hour in an hour. And then I think the range on the Tesla has 2 different models. The smaller one is about a 300-mile range. And then you need a pretty big battery. But this is tested, fully loaded, and Brian will talk more about, I think, how we go there. This is, I think, the biggest thing, and Wes talked about it. You got to plan these things out. If you don't, you're going to put this infrastructure in place and find out, hey, I'm going to need 2x of this, or I have too much. And I think that's something where you can overdo it, thinking you're going to have a certain utilization rate, and find out that, hey, I really didn't need to put in 10 of them. Okay? Patterns of duty cycles, you guys all know those. What's your current site infrastructure look like? How much are we, what's our utility service looking like? Again, future proofing, budget ROIs, Wes did an awesome job on that. And then rebates and incentives, we talked a little bit more about those things. And then the smart charging for off-peak. Everybody understands about demand charges, right? You get that. You can be a big percentage of your utility bill can be just utility demand charges for peak charging. And then, of course, if you have the right software and the right optimization of that between the state of charge of your vehicles and what those routes look like, you kind of merge all those together in one big happy soup. So I think one more. Okay. Mine doesn't compare to yours. Yours was a lot more, but this is sort of a very simplified version of an L2 needs analysis example, where you look at how many vans, what's the duty cycles, what's the amount per year, and there's a lot of assumptions we float through in there. You might have a much better electricity rate, for example, but anyway, the idea is to have this as part of your decision criteria, in which you can see how much can you save over so much time. So, and there's lots of good software, like we talked about. So, and I think Jose is going to talk about that. So, get that. So, anyway, that's me. So,
Thank you, Jeff. We'll go on to Jose's presentation for Zero-Nox. And just let me know when you want me to
maybe
put
I will.
the slides. Yeah,
All right. My neck's going to get a little... Hi, everyone. My name is Jose Doherty. I am with Zero-Nox, and we are based in the Central Valley of California, specifically in Porterville. And what we do is we do retrofit electrification. And so what we'll do is we will take an existing internal combustion engine vehicle, and we'll take out the engine, all those components, and we'll put in a motor controller, a battery, and we'll put it back into service for fleets. And typically, just like Wes was talking about, where EV has a lane, within that EV lane, retrofits have an application as well where it makes sense. And what Zero-Nox tries to do, and really our bread and butter in that retrofit electrification space, is doing it and being pragmatic about it when it makes sense. And so we'll get a lot of people saying, hey, I've got a fleet, I've got 5 vehicles that I want to convert. That's not going to work, right? You have to have one volume to get that cleaner technology, to get the higher performing and the economical piece. But you also have to have an application that makes sense, right? Whereas long-haul trucking is not going to work for retrofit electrification. But what will work, which I'll talk about some of our projects that we're doing, is refuse trucks will work because they have a predictable duty cycle, right? And they come home to charge every night. And that's where that infrastructure can come into play. School buses will work as well. You have day cab within the valley. A day cab semi will work as well more on the heavy duty side. Drayage, we even have an interesting logging truck operation where that's an application where it might not make sense to convert their entire fleet that are going 500 miles in a day, but there's a certain portion of their fleet that is going only 60 miles a leg or something like that. And with opportunity charging, you can actually convert a portion of that fleet and save them a lot. We've been talking a lot about TCO, so we'll go to the next slide, where you can save on the total cost of ownership. You can save a ton just on the energy and the maintenance. And that's really what we always do is, one, we'll do a pilot demonstration where we want to make sure that like these guys were saying, you want to make sure that the vehicle works, because the TCO only works if the vehicle works. And these are not, show vehicles for cities like you'll see sometimes they'll have one electric vehicle and that's basically it, right? This is more a tool that they use to do their job. And if that vehicle is down, then they're losing money. And that's where we really need to make sure that we understand that with the fleet as well. And so this is an example where we have projects in California with, like we said, school buses, day cab trucking, refuse trucks, but we also have our largest project is in Ghana, in Western Africa. And this is a fleet of about 2,000 vehicles, and they're electrifying 1,000 of those vehicles. We conducted a pilot and ran those vehicles for a year, and now they're converting their entire fleet, starting with the first 200. And so the first 200 are underway, and they're expected to save roughly $300 million over the course of 6 years. Their ROI is less than 3 years, and the way that they're justifying the financing of this project is that the amount that they would spend on fuel, so under $3,000 USD, that they would spend for a single axle compactor to run each month, they're putting towards the payment essentially for the financing of the project. And it pays for itself in under 3 years. And so we ran for, and what the customer asked for, which is Zoomlion in Ghana, is they said, look, we're not going to commit to this at the entire fleet unless we see it running and see it working consistently. And so that's what we're able to do. And all of this for a third to a fourth of the cost of a new EV. And where this makes sense is when the vehicle actually is able to perform well, right? And when this makes sense is when it's a duty cycle that makes sense. So if we could go to the next slide. We believe it's the world's largest retrofit electrification project for doing 1,000 out of those 2,000 trucks. And now, why only 1,000 out of those 2,000 trucks? This is part of the being pragmatic about which vehicles that you're going to choose, right? So within their fleet, they might have had 20 different models, and that actually comes up to where about 500 of those vehicles are too old. So we'll pick vehicles that are less than 10 years old, because that's before the chassis starts to break down, before they send them out for auction. They also want to make sure that they make up a considerable portion of their fleet. And so if that makes sense, then that will qualify. It actually qualifies about 1,500, but we're starting with the first 1,000, which is basically just 3 electrification kits. So it's a single axle compactor, it's a double axle compactor, and then it's a swing arm truck, kind of like our roll-on, roll-off trucks as well. So that saves them $40 million annually on fuel. And of course, on the cleaner side, which has to do with 80,000 metric tons of CO2. And so this is with no incentives. This is with no carbon credits. This is with none of that. It has to stand on its own. Now, any of those incentives that would come after, whether it's Green Climate Fund in Ghana or here in California like HVIP, those are just gravy for the fleet to get. We want to make sure that retrofits, if they're going to go through the trouble of the logistics of having to convert a vehicle, that it does make economic sense for them. And I will go into a little bit of how we actually perform retrofits being based in California in, either across the country, whether it's in New York or whether it's in Ghana, right? And the reason what we do is we will utilize their existing mechanics. So the Jaspong Group in Ghana has about 1,200 mechanics that know how to fix vehicles that constantly go down by turning a wrench. And so what we will do is we will send our engineers over, and we've sent the first batch of engineers over already, and we will train them on how to do the retrofits with us. Of course, we're sort of the level 3 support, but they are the people on the ground that are doing the retrofits, and that will allow them to have access to all of the software, to know exactly how the vehicle works. And then when there is an issue, they actually have put it together, and so they know how to service and support it. Because what we found is with our fleets here in California is they've gotten their parade vehicle, and then it breaks down, and then it's a very, very expensive paperweight. And that's the last thing that we want on the Zero-Nox side, on the retrofit electrification side, and it just sours the entire industry. And so that's how we, sort of our novel approach for how we approach training and workforce development as well. And so this is just, apologize, it's a little small, but more of a granular. I talked about the monthly fuel costs being about $4,500 for an internal combustion engine, depending on how many runs they do. And then obviously going down in terms of the cost of electricity. And this is where, the cost of electricity in Ghana is somewhere around 16 cents. But there are other areas in California where there's a logging truck company here up north that we're working with, where they actually have, their cost of electricity is a 4-cent opportunity cost because they have a lot of solar, a lot of battery. They're generating a lot of excess energy and selling it to the state. So their TCO and their ROI is, under 2 years because they have all that excess energy that they're able to use. We also talk about maintenance. I know that I'm sure everyone here can talk about a little bit about how the maintenance is reduced. About 45% is also what we saw on our trucks as well. And then, of course, CO2, it's always great that we see as just an added benefit, but it should never be the only reason for doing the project. It should be also because it makes economic sense. So going on to basically the last slide, some of these lesson learned, I'll also just echo what everyone else said. Again, we want to be pragmatic about starting where EVs make sense, about specifically for retrofits, turning down the project, even if we have a customer that might be throwing money at us if it doesn't make sense and it's not going to be successful. Again, investing in that workforce aspect and the service and support. And so we couldn't do it ourselves. We're too small to service all of the projects that we have, but we do invest. We make sure that the fleet is also invested in the workforce and the service and the support. Infrastructure, we always need to partner with the existing infrastructure, make sure that that's a line item in the total cost of ownership so that they know this is how much they're going to have to invest, and this is exactly when they're going to get their money back. Perfect. And so the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the way that we're doing this and proving out that this is actually going to work is that we utilized grant funding to actually do demos in each one of these applications. So school buses, semi-trucks, logging trucks, refuse trucks, drayage, and then also medium-duty van. And so those are underway this year so that way when someone comes to us or a fleet owner comes to us and says, prove it, we'll say, yes, we'll prove it, but also first you want to drive a vehicle, take it for 30 or 60 or 90 days, and see how it works for your operations, make sure that it works, and then we can go in and we'll start to convert your fleet. So that's what we're doing in retrofit, and happy to speak to anybody else afterwards about that. Thank you.
Just gonna pause for a second. I'm gonna upload. We're at 90. Let me just get this here.
Before he gets that up, first of all, my name is Brady, not Brian. But I'll tell you a funny story. We joke with my daughters. I go to Starbucks, not super often, but 9 out of 10 times they call me Brandy. And I always order and I go watch, and I wait, and they'll say latte for Brandy, and it becomes like a family thing. So I saw Brian. I haven't seen Brian yet. So today's the first time I've gotten Brian. So I know he's like, we've known each other a while. He's like, who the hell is this guy down there? So my name is Brady Matoyan. I'm the CEO of OK Produce. My story is very different from the rest on the panel. I appreciate hearing everything they did, and you guys covered so many good things. I have no product to sell you guys other than produce, hopefully at grocery stores that you guys are shopping at throughout California, which is great. But today I'm not selling to you. I have no products, and it takes all of us to do that. I'm explaining the mission that we're on currently, so you guys understand it. We're a fleet owner. We're living this. We've got some great stories. We got some bad stories. And what we're trying to do is share the good, bad, and the ugly so that you guys have a roadmap to follow. And the reason I'm here is, number one, to support those that have been supporting us, because we have had partners to do that. But secondly, I have to admit, I am an environmentalist. I like the planet Earth in a big way. And I got to start there, and that's like a ebbs and flows how popular that is. But I share that because when I came to OK Produce, it's a family-owned business, much like Wes. We just found out today that we serviced his parents' grocery stores for like 40 years. I did not want to be at OK Produce growing up. That wasn't the plan for me. I wanted to avoid it. But when I did come back, I came back on a mission because my entire life I was a little hippie kid trying to do things that are good for the environment. And when I came back, my first thing I did, which would not be normal, was I tried to solar power OK Produce in 2001. And that's really unique because there was not a single company in the West Coast that was doing that. And I went to my dad and the board and everyone, and I said, I want to do this. And my dad said, we don't have swimming pools. Why would you want that? We don't need hot water. I said, no, this is powered. It actually exists. It's going to happen. And everyone said yes. The consultants, Deloitte and Touche, everyone said it's great. If it works, this is going to be an awesome investment. And I went to my dad and I pitched him on it, and he said no so fast out of his mouth. Because his question was, who's done this? And my answer was, well, nobody, but that's why I want to. And In the end, I begged him to do it because it was my way of getting invested in the company. That's our family business. It's third generation. And so I start with that because I learned really early that anything I want to do environmentally had to work for the environment, truthfully. It had to also work. Like the thing actually had to work. And there's a million things they built that didn't work. And the third thing is it had to have this thing that you've talked about called an ROI, which in the year 2000, I didn't know what that really meant. I learned really quickly that everything I wanted to do had to have those three components. And through the last 25 years, we've tried a lot of things that have had varying degrees of those three. Some of them, planting trees, well, there's not a lot of ROI on planting trees, but there's an environmental, and that's okay. That works out. But when it starts talking about bigger investments, you gotta hit all three of those things. So I start with that with you guys. We can go to the next slide. Our company is a wholesale produce company. We sell throughout California into Oregon and Nevada. We do have 144 trucks in our fleet. They are all semi-trucks. We have no mid-size trucks in our fleet. And our uptime is 7 days a week, 363 days of delivery per year. We actually are open 365, but we can have no downtime. Produce is super quick. It's fast-paced. You cannot have any downtime, and all of our customers, I'm looking at FreshPoint right here, all of our customers expect us to be there early in the morning every single day. So it's really critical coming from that we can't experiment and get it wrong. We can't have a truck broken down because our customers buy produce literally every day. They don't stock it. It's not grocery. It's not Pepsi. It's not Coke. It's every day, fresh, and if we don't deliver, those shelves are empty. So I frame that there. Go ahead. This is a little bit about what I mentioned. We do call ourselves a lean green produce machine. It was kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but every one of these projects that we did all had to have that same thing. It had to be, will it work? Is it right for the environment? And what's the ROI? And just a few of these things is we started with the electric yard trucks. And I'll share with you the good, bad, and the ugly today. Like I said, the yard trucks have been an amazing investment. We replaced 4 of our diesel trucks that were old, polluting, lugging around the yard with these 3 orange EVs. Literally, of the investments we've made in the vehicle, the orange EVs have been by far the easiest, best, most seamless use. They're obviously short because they're in our yard. Been a big benefit for us. We have 19 semi-trucks in-house right now. We have 10 Freightliners, 7 Volvos, and 2 Teslas. We have 5 megawatts of solar you can see there. Again, you understand the investment on that. You understand the benefit, and you understand the ROI there. And then a number of other projects. Each one of these, when I come and say I want to do something environmentally, that's just step one. On our team, we have myself, we have our CFO, and she is really, really hardcore as a CFO. She's not kind of like loves the environment. She's like a straight CFO, and that's her job. I've got a general manager who, if you've ever read the Who Moved My Cheese, he's the guy that wants to do nothing different. Everything was not going to work, and he's not going to change. He's super valuable because he's right a lot of the time. I've got my director of transportation, Bob. He's in between, a really creative, smart guy, but he also is there, and we've added one of our top drivers. We brought him in and said, you're going to be on our team too. And then our fleet and our warehouse manager who runs all of our electrical and works with PG&E. So that's our team. It took a team of those 5 components or 6 components to make sure every decision we made hit all those things right. And they didn't just listen to me, the CEO, coming up with a harebrained idea that they had to listen to. They all have equal votes, including mine. But we do start with that we want to do it. We want to make it work. We don't start with that we don't want to do it. Go ahead and go next. So we did phase 1. We started this in 2020 during COVID. I happened to meet with I turned out to be the president of Freightliner. We bought sight unseen the first 10, I think off his assembly line. Those arrived in 2023. We added solar to those because, again, it's not just about the truck. It's also about overall effect and emissions. We since have added 7 Volvos to the fleet. We have the 3 orange EVs, and then we changed our entire car fleet over to electric cars between Teslas and the Chevy Equinox. Learned a ton in the process, and basically what we're doing now is showing a playbook on how to do this right by knowing what not to do and what we didn't do right, because there were a lot of things we learned that we didn't do right. So phase 1, and really a phase 1.5, was us learning what was working, both infrastructure, charger. We do have 9 ports, 3 cabinets that are 180 kilowatt that drop into 60 kW ports. There's been a tremendous difference in the performance of the trucks that we've gotten. We thought that we were going to go from Freightliner to Volvo, and that would be a change. That did not go as well as we had planned, and so we are now pivoting again, but we're not giving up. We probably could have. I joke with my team that any average company would have given up. In this choose your own adventure story of it, we would have quit a lot along the way, but that's where we want to do this for the right reasons keeps us going. Go ahead and go to the next one. We do calculate emissions because we live in Central Valley. If you guys know Fresno very well, Fresno is atrocious air pollution, and those that are up here don't know that as well, but when you're in Fresno and the AQI is 139 and your kids can't go to soccer practice for a week straight, that's a legitimate thing that happens every single year to those of us that live there. Even worse as we go from Fresno down to Bakersfield. Arvin's like the worst air pollution I've ever seen in my life. So those that live there know that this is not a big environmental global warming conversation, although I believe that. It is an emissions problem that we live in Fresno. It doesn't exist everywhere else. And I say that because the San Joaquin Air Board has been a partner. Obviously, we're here because of CARB. There is a factor there. And so we really spent these first 17 trucks calculating every single square inch of what the emissions reductions would be, because that's that environmental side I want to know. I want to know what that's going to be. I don't want to forget that side of it. And so we do this, and it's a little bit dated, but we've been doing this on the trucks, and we're now extrapolating what it will be like for the entire fleet. So it's important you know that this will be a major impact. Next. So after phase 1, we didn't give up. We pivoted. We ended up getting 2 Tesla trucks last year, and we had demoed a truck in the midst of our conversation. The 7 Volvos did not perform to the duty cycle we needed. We needed many more miles to cover the areas we were. The Volvos were supposed to get 275 miles. They really, in reality, get more like 175. And for our cycle, that's about 15% of our routes. So we had to stop short on that and say we needed to pivot or give up. We decided to pivot. We got the 2 Teslas. The 2 Teslas legitimately do get 500 miles on range. They do have the most efficient KW use by a long shot, about 40% better than our other trucks right now. And that led us to say, let's not give up and move forward. And so in the grant that we had been awarded, which was for grocery stores and emissions reductions throughout the valley, we pivoted that with support of CARB CEC, San Joaquin Air Board, PG&E, and the rest, and showed them the impact would be different. So we now have on this plan that you can see being built out, the blue is solar panels. It's 2 megawatts of solar panels, 2 megawatts of battery storage. It's 63 Tesla trucks, 61, 2 of which are in-house, 61 are arriving starting in September, and will arrive by the end of this year. All the construction, I should have brought the pictures, it's underway right now. All the solar is going up. Actually, this week the panels are going up. Will be done in June, and then we'll have the opportunity to have that ready for the trucks to arrive with a completion date of June of 2026. Go ahead and go next. We also have a phase 3 that we've been planning, so we've stayed ahead of this project. And just one note on this is that we do learn, when I learned at OK Produce, the solar was one thing, but back when I first got there in 2021, we did learn that our biggest impact in the environment was definitely our fleet, no doubt about that. We just could never find a way to fix it. We tried super single tires, side skirts, aerodynamics, hybrids, biodiesel. We actually bought biodiesel really early, and it was really crappy, and it ruined all our injectors. I looked like really stupid that day when that didn't work. But we didn't give up, we brought it back. We know the fleet's the biggest impact on the environment. So we've continued forward on this plan. We have pre-ordered an additional 20 semi-trucks. We have 20 HVIP vouchers. We also are doing truck replacement, important to note, because in Fresno and some other areas, there is the ability to apply for truck replacement depending on your fleet. So that is bringing obviously our ROI is changing dramatically. It's not the same story for everybody. But we have the 20 coming. We just this morning on my drive up, I actually got the design for the additional design for the chargers. We currently have 12 megawatt chargers that will be on the first site, and this next one we might have 4 to 5, we think, depending on where we go. And that will start soon after the phase 2 starts, We'll jump into that with the goal of ending it by the end of 2027. Go ahead. So again, here's the way we calculate this. Important, we really calculate the emissions, and I won't go into detail. Basically, it is important to us. In the same concept, the ROI is the exact same thing, and I'm not going to post it up here. But my CFO, who is, like I said, I had to be convinced, she is now one of the biggest proponents of the project of anyone in our group. The general manager, who was the him and ha guy, he's still kind of like, I don't know if I like this. But he's on board. The CFO was important to me to say, where are we at financially in this decision? Make sure you check me and make sure we get this right. She's the biggest proponent of this project. And she, anytime, even when we have a little cost overrun, she's like, yep, but it's still this ROI. It's still going to be this. So she's been somewhat converted over the last couple of years. So I share that with you guys because I will never propose to you to do something that's only good for the environment or only economically. It's really got to be all three. And right now we've found between the environmental side and in our mind the Tesla transition that we're doing, and then thirdly the finances of the entire thing, we feel extraordinarily confident that we're going to be in a great space. Go ahead and go. Again, this is just a breakdown of what the actual, and there's a lot of ways to show this. This is just one way we showed it. This will be changing, but go ahead and go next. And again, same thing here. Electrical cost versus diesel. For us, we equate this for our company. Our company, the lean part of our lean green produce machine is about being efficient, keeping costs down. As I'm pointing to Fresh Point again, we know right now food affordability is a topic everybody knows about. We service 1,400, 1,500 retailers, and every single one of them wants better cost of goods because that's important in the world. That's been our mantra forever. We service, of those stores, 90% of those are more value-based stores. Of those, 60% are in designated food deserts that are disadvantaged communities where food's really important. So as we talk to our customers, we talk about emissions because I make them listen to me. But we really talk about the fact that our goal is to keep our costs down and be efficient. And because of the transition to what we're doing now, we're going to connect the cost savings to our core business, which is best quality at best price. And we're literally going to pass along the savings to our customers and do it overtly. We're not going to hide it. We're going to explain to them, and we're sharing with them what we're doing along the way because it's our business model. Maintenance costs, you talked about that. One thing we didn't hear, I will share, is the driver experience. I asked again this morning to confirm this, but they literally have 144 trucks. The 2 Teslas we have are the number 1 and number 2 truck. Guys kill to be on those routes. They absolutely love them. I was in one the other day. I want to drive it. I don't have a Class A license, but I'm gonna go on a Saturday and just cruise around the block a little bit. But they sound like the car, as do the Freightliner and Volvo. The experience in an electric truck, which is the office of a driver, 8, 12, 14 hours a day. They're in that truck while we're in our office, in our comfort of our home. They're in that truck, and those of you who have a fleet know this. It's really important that they've got a safe, reliable, but also comfortable truck because it's a stressful job to begin with. So I say that that's a really important piece. And as our drivers, we had our best drivers come in and test them. They're the ones that talk to the rest of the drivers about their experience. It wasn't me shouting at the hilltops about my beliefs. It was really the drivers talking to the drivers about what they thought was best. And they really were the ones that really pushed it forward. If they'd hated it, we wouldn't have bought another truck at all. They didn't like the range anxiety of the first 2 that we got, so we put them on the right routes, number 1. They on the Tesla truck that has dissipated completely. So I share that because it's something that we think about in everything we buy, in all the tools we buy. And then customers appreciate what we're doing. They like that we're being progressive. They know it's part of what we've been doing for many years since I got to the company. They know it equates to as long as we can service them well on time and at a great cost, they're stoked. But there are many of them that are actually legitimately excited. I bring them to OK Produce. I make them drive in the trucks. I literally make them go and drive around the block, not them driving, but they're in the back seat. And they all appreciate that we're doing something progressive and trying to stay ahead. And so this is the vision of where we're at. In the next year, 18 months, we'll have 100 Semi-trucks, 20 plus, it's actually now 22. Passenger vehicles will be 100% there. Electric trucks, 2.5 megawatts of solar, 2.5 megawatts of battery storage. And then I share this because none of it can be done without the partners that are here involved. The city of Fresno, where I'm from, has been absolutely supportive. And in an age when permitting is very difficult, they've been super supportive and on board. San Joaquin Air Board has been fantastic on their support when we wanted to pivot, and obviously they have money that they want to spend to clean the air in my hometown and surrounding areas. PG&E has been awesome. Recently they've been a little challenging. I will say without them we know we're in trouble, but we have really forged a good relationship with them, and they're on board with what we're trying to do. And of course Tesla is there, and Volvo. California Air Resource Boards and CEC have been fantastic too. They know we've been changing and learning, and what we will also promise that we're going to share the story, good, bad, or ugly, with people like yourself, and that we're hoping that this is a project that others will follow and not learn the hard way like we did, is basically what we're trying to say. So if anyone wants to learn about it, again, I have nothing to sell you unless you're a grocery store, and then I have a lot of produce to sell you. But if you're in the world of fleet and you want to know, we're going to be sharing the story with everybody because we do want to lead, and we would hope that others follow and still believe in something that's possible. And that's it.
All right, thank you all for the presentations. We have about 10 minutes before we go into our CARB and Air District funding. Just wanted to know if we can have a quick discussion. So I'll just ask and you guys can chime in. The first question is, you are in a meeting with CARB asking for input on a zero-emission program. From all your your perspective from your industries, what points would you offer to staff?
I would say, and what I'm doing ourselves, I would say really vet out what's working and what's not working. Help people spend the money wisely, and I say this as we're receiving money. We actually turned down money recently for a project that we designed with a product that we learned midway through was not good, and the money was a very large amount. We can't prudently take that money as a citizen and taxpayer. It makes no sense at all. It'd be stupid too, because we wouldn't use the equipment anyway. So I would just say it's really, really important to really vet out what is the best product, and that's all products that is being supported. What's the best product? Whether it's charger, whether it's solar, whether it's a forklift. What is really the best equipment for companies? So that's my big thing. I'd say is number one.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think just to add on to that, it would be make sure that you invest in the duty cycles and the applications that make sense, and that you take into account the workforce development, you take into account the charging infrastructure, and then you can really simplify that ROI calculation, because it can get really, really complicated. I think if you just focus on those core metrics that really make sense for a company, then it'll push, allow them to push through those tough times as well.
Maybe we didn't talk about this that much, but from a contractor standpoint, just make sure that you're aware that getting through these projects is not going to be a month. Go from, gee, I would like to get a charging infrastructure to actually have one. Permitting could be very difficult to get through, or at least very time consuming. So just kind of be aware of that as you go through. And if CARB could fix that, it would be great. So.
Yeah, I have a different customer base. My municipal customers, I'm in the San Joaquin Valley, so I can remember when I started showing electric trucks to, cities in Kern County, and they're like, get that funny looking truck out of here, and they kind of stuck their head in the sand. But kind of understanding, not sticking your head in the sand as a municipality, and looking for partnerships with your local air board and looking with CARB and saying, okay, this is my fleet, this is the plan I need to get to, this is how much charging I'm going to need, and not getting it so segmented where you look at it as a big picture as a city, and you don't just kind of stick your head in the sand. So start working with those agencies, working with the PG&E, and and hit it head on, face the storm and go into it, because it's tough if you're mandated to buy.
For the sake of time, so it's kind of a two-pronged question. How would you grow zero-emission fleet customers, and how can CARB improve to and foster communications and community engagement on heavy-duty fleets?
From my experience, getting trucks into the hands of the people and letting them test out the equipment has been very important for us to grow. Because like Brady said, once you have the experience of driving it, it's not so bad. Range anxiety is a thing, but and being very honest, where EV works, where it doesn't work, and then as sales guys don't overpromise. I know it's tough out there, especially in the car industry when it's a commission-based world. A lot of companies will just tell their customer everything they want to hear, and that doesn't help long-term growth. So being very open and honest of where the technology works and where it doesn't.
Yeah, I would say more demonstrations, more pilots of actually having the vehicles doing the duty cycle that it needs to do that lead to, and making sure that it doesn't stop at the pilot. I know a lot of times in municipalities especially, it can stop with the 1 or 2 vehicles that they have in their fleet, but really having a demonstration vehicle that does the duty cycle that they really need it to do. And maybe that's gonna work for 100% of your fleet, but maybe it'll work for 25 or 50% of your fleet, and until the technology improves.
I'm going to throw it. One thing I will say about infrastructure is it is challenging, no doubt about that. I would say that it's we've almost given up a dozen or so times, and it was initially about the trucks, but it's the infrastructure is tough, and getting a city and PG&E and CARB and CEC and the funding to get that is not an easy task to figure out. But you cannot rely, a trucking team can't rely on the Tesla network that might happen in this. You have to have behind the fence to know. There's no one, we have trucks that are fuel, we have wet fuel, and they come and they fuel our trucks. We don't even think about it. It's simple. We can fuel anywhere. So you have to have behind the meter. So I would just say that side is just, I even said earlier, I just think that side is a scary thing for a lot of people, and it's scary for us in the middle of it right now. We got to find a way to pave that path better, because without PG&E, like I said, and without the infrastructure, you really got to not do it. You got to hold back. So finding a way to get those two pieces better together, tied together with a better plan, and I don't have the answer for it because I'm still figuring it out myself. It is just a challenge. I think many people in the room would be like, I love the truck, I love this, I can do this, but man, that part is really tough. So I'd say that you should concentrate a little more energy on that side. Don't know yet. So that's a good question, because we started looking at all the guys that were charging. There's Watt EV and Forum, and there's 4 or 5 guys that wanted to build the spot pro lodges. And I always got to, one is they didn't know what to install. I mean, whether it's this charger or that charger or this, I mean, it's really hard for them to figure out where to invest. But then the next question was, what are you going to charge me? And the first guy came out at 64 cents. I'm like, bro. There's no chance. Even if I'm dead, I'll tow it home before I go do that. That's robbery. I know you have an EV rate. It's probably 18 cents or 16 cents. There's no way I'm paying you that no matter what. We know in ROA, we have a number. This is loose. Don't quote me. But under 30, you start having a number that looks good against diesel. I think that's where the last was. So if we're on the road and we're paying 45, 46, that's going to be a little score to get home. We're not going to go hardcore. We got to get in the teens to get a real legit number. I think that's what you guys probably hear too, is where we're hoping to have, the combination of the EV rate with solar makes it really compelling. But on the road, we're hoping that whoever builds those places are not doing it just, and maybe Tesla will build theirs and they'll charge differently because they're not in the charging, they're trying to sell trucks. So maybe they'll see it differently. But most of the guys I saw, they put a lot of money in infrastructure, and their ROI was based off of 40 cents or 44 or whatever it would be. That to us was like, ugh, that's a tough sell.
Yeah, Andrew said this a second. What Brady was saying about involving the utility companies in these processes, it's everything to get this to go. So if you don't do that, you're going to look at that and go, yeah, I've got this great plan, and we're going to have this, megawatt charging hub. And it turned out, yeah, no, that's not happening. And so getting them involved early and often, that's how this thing becomes successful, is to do that. So.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
definitely.
the infrastructure outside the fence is tough, because I drive an EV, and it's a 22-foot step van, and I'm parking in a Walmart parking lot in a stall that's designed for a Prius, and I'm paying 65 cents a kilowatt, and people are pissed because I'm blocking 4 stalls when I'm trying to charge, but the infrastructure is not there outside the fence. You mentioned Watt EV. I charged there Monday. They do have the solar side, and it's at 10 cents on the solar side, so I can charge my 210 kilowatt hour battery for 20 bucks. That's great. And they have stalls that are meant for trucks. So if we can replicate that, that's awesome, because then you really are at that price already. But when you're doing the retail stalls, it's 65 cents. Not a big deal when you're in a little car, at a 30 kilowatt battery. It's it's not, you don't see it, but when you're in a 500 kilowatt hour battery, yeah, it affects your pocketbook big time.
Randy, you said your best duty cycle is with Tesla is 500 miles, and what's your average gross load that you're pulling?
We're pulling full load, so our average is probably in the mid-30s, 30,000 pound range. Oh, I mean, it's a regular sized truck with, our cargo is 35,000, so we're all 48-foot trucks, so we had that question because we learned that hard way with the other trucks, is they may not have known we had a full truck, but most of our trucks do run 30 to 40,000 miles. If we're beneath that, we got kind of an empty truck, which is a different problem. So everything is a 48 or 53-foot trailer with a regular semi-truck, all in the, we try to aim for that 34, we usually cube out before we weight out, so 34 to 38,000 is kind of a sweet spot for our loads.
Yeah, that range depends on, maximum gross or less than maximum temperatures, cold, hot.
It does. We're fortunate that we're not super freezing. We do have the heat. The heat in Fresno in August is legitimately a problem. We know there's effect there. But we now have, and we wouldn't be buying more unless we felt really confident in the duty cycle of the Tesla, getting the miles in full loads. And we've been testing it in all weird spots, over mountains, over there. We have the 2 that we're sending in literally every direction we can to stress test them and see what they're doing. And I mean, we went to LA and back, actually, on a run over the Grapevine both ways on a charge. So that's like a big test for us. And we wouldn't do that, I think, in diesel. We'd probably stop. So it worked out really well that we've been able to really push it in a lot of areas. So far it's passed every test. Right now, 96% of our routes can be covered with the Tesla. And I think it's like 16% can be covered by the other trucks.
And on your solar panels, you've obviously been one of the innovators, started that years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Have you retrofitted any solar panels with more efficient ones?
No, the way we buy everything is we try to buy quality once, buy it up front, right? So we always ask for the most efficient panel from the start. We got to offer a lot of cheap ones, especially a couple of years ago. They were really cheap. And we've just always tried to buy the right quality and buy it one time as a strategy, whether that's a truck or a solar. And we had originally started with power, with the right company, which was SunPower, and asked for the most efficient, the best warranty. The only challenge we had with solar, it's going to sound really funny, is we get bullet holes in them on our roof. I swear, true story. We lose 3 to 5 a year from a bullet hole dropping in the top of them. Other than that, we have a maintenance plan. They're checking the inverters to make sure. And the inverters will have issues. They'll come off. We'll have to fix the inverters. But the efficiency on them it's been really good. And the ones that are here, we bought them, said then we want to buy it one time, the most efficient. And we kind of shoot away some other salesmen who were selling us some other ones that maybe had a short warranty, or you kind of get what you pay for.
Great graphics campaign too. I like that.
Oh, thank you.
We're jamming.
Yeah.
Perfect. Just want to thank, we're going to wrap this panel discussion up. I want to give a big thanks to Wes, Jeff, Brady, and Jose for joining us today. And If you have any questions, they'll be in the hallways before they leave, so if you can approach them and ask any other questions you may have of our panelists. On our next agenda item, we'll be going to our Air District and CARB funding. So, okay, we're going to give you guys a 15-minute break. So we'll start up at around 11:30. Hi, everyone. We'll begin our second half of the CARB One Stop. We'll go into our CARB funding, and I'll hand it over to April for the core presentation.
Hi, as Michael stated, my name is April, and I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of our CORE program, also known as the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project. So CORE incentivizes zero-emission off-road equipment by providing a point-of-sale discount across a wide range of off-road equipment categories, including ag, construction, and commercial hovercraft. To date, CORE has supported over 700 businesses and funded the purchase of almost 6,000 pieces of equipment across the state. 74% of the funds have directly benefited priority populations, including disadvantaged communities. This program also places an emphasis on supporting small businesses and priority populations. Enhanced incentives are available for these categories. Maybe. On the screen now are some of the guiding principles of CORE. So the main one is simplicity. CORE keeps this process streamlined and make it easy for businesses to access clean equipment incentives. The program also aligns with and reinforces CARB's clean air and climate goals and the long-term heavy-duty investment strategy. And lastly, CORE prioritizes funding for small businesses and underserved communities, ensuring broad access to clean technology. And then likely what you're most interested in is how to participate in CORE. CORE is a first come, first serve incentive program. Key benefits are that it allows stacking with other incentive programs as long as you're following the guidelines of each. Also, CORE does not require you to scrap a piece of equipment in order to receive incentives through this program. So the first step with utilizing CORE is choosing the equipment you wish to use. You'd start by identifying the equipment that fits your operation. These are listed in the CORE catalog on our website. Next, you would reach out to a CORE approved dealer. They'll walk you through the options of the equipment and handle the entire application for you. The dealer will submit the voucher request and application. It's simple and streamlined. When funds are available, the voucher is issued and applied directly to your purchase. You will only pay the discounted price for your equipment. CORE covers the difference up front and no reimbursements is required. Some other incentive programs will require you to pay for the equipment in full and receive a reimbursement afterwards. CORE pays the dealer directly at the time of sale. And then the last step, of course, is putting your zero-emission equipment to use and improving the air quality in your region. A little bit of background on CORE is that our last solicitation opened in August of 2025 and closed in November. We were open for 3 months. We had almost $36 million available on a first-come, first-served basis. CORE has 7 different project categories, and at the time of closure, some of the project categories were oversubscribed, while others were undersubscribed. After the program closed, we moved the money around to ensure that the wait list for the oversubscribed project categories received funding as well. Currently, we are undergoing the budget process, and it is unclear if CORE will have additional funds this year. However, on the next slide, we'll have our email address. You can reach out to us for additional information to stay up to date on the CORE process. We will know more about potential funds for CORE, I would say around June. If this program reopens this year, it will likely be around August. I'm going to pass it over to Will for some information on HVIP.
Hey, good afternoon, or it's still morning. So thank you, April. I'm Will Turner, and I'm the HVIP implementation lead, and looking forward to sharing some information about HVIP. And I guess just another disclaimer, our table, HVIP core, we're over there. Please come see us. Ah, David, recognize you. Yeah, so we have a table over there. Please come see us, talk to us about HVIP, core, some other funding opportunities and that CARB has. We'd love to chat with you. So, Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, also known as HVIP. And I know sometimes we look at HVIP and say, well, where's the H? So back in the day, 2009, when HVIP began, it was the hybrid Zero-Emission Voucher Incentive Project. And so now we've just kind of evolved the program to only focus on clean zero-emission vehicles, so battery electric and hydrogen vehicles. And so moving on just a little bit. So since 2009, HVIP has supported over 15,000 clean vehicles that have been funded through the program, and we've supported over 2,000 fleets, and about 975 million, so almost $1 billion have been redeemed through the HVIP program. And so HVIP was launched in 2009 by CARB in partnership with CalSTART, with the objective of just providing a direct purchase incentive, just making clean vehicles more affordable. And instead of reimbursements, vouchers are applied directly at the time of purchase, just similar to the core program, again, making it easier for businesses to transition to clean technologies. And so HVIP operates on key principles, that ensure the effectiveness of the program. And so one, we do try to accelerate the market transformation by prioritizing the cleanest, most advanced technologies and supporting CARB's long-term strategy for heavy-duty investments. And of course, simplifying the vehicle process, or just simplifying the process for fleet owners to encourage their adoption, ensuring equitable investments so that these benefits reach disadvantaged communities, and also minimizing market disruptions by maintaining predictable funding, and of course, graduating technologies to encourage innovation while keeping incentives targeted at newer solutions. And so how does this work? How do purchasers participate in HVIP? And so businesses interested in HVIP just must follow a simple, structured process to access this funding. And so steps include identifying an eligible vehicle, working with participating dealers, and then securing a voucher at the time of purchase. And so it's a fleet-friendly approach. The program is designed, again, to minimize administrative burdens and just to streamline funding access. And just an update about the current funding status at HVIP. And so this was as of last week, but I did check earlier today, and HVIP is still open. There's about $74 million remaining in HVIP Standard, and about $109 million, or maybe $107 million remaining in drayage. And so we also have about $8 million available for transit specific buses. And so if you have any information, again, come visit us. Well, if you need any more information, come visit us at the table. And you may also email us at info@californiahvip.org. And I will just do a spin because my colleague, Brianna Rocha, she was unable to make it today to talk about ICEF, but ICEF, the Innovative Small E-Fleet Pilot Project, I'll be just talking about that a little bit. And essentially, that is a program, that's a project that's a set aside from HVIP, and it specifically focuses on small fleets. And so the ICEF is a set aside within HVIP and has helped small fleets across the state to get into zero-emission trucks. And so ICEF funding supports innovative solutions that address challenges small fleets may face when looking to adopt a zero-emission vehicle, like providing all-inclusive leases, truck as a service, and other alternative business models. So it can cover zero-emission trucks and buses ranging in size from 2B to Class 8. That's the same in HVIP. So only small fleets are eligible for ISEF. And small fleets are defined as California-owned companies, nonprofits, public agencies, and individual owner-operators with 20 or fewer medium and heavy-duty vehicles in their fleets, and they have a revenue of less than 15 million. And government agencies and nonprofits are exempt from the revenue cap. So in ISEF, there are three primary parties: a provider, an HVIP-approved dealer, and an eligible small fleet participant. And so providers are companies that put together service packages in ISEF to make zero-emission vehicle adoption easier for small fleets. And so providers, they actually complete, providers and dealers work together to complete the voucher request application and oversee the entire transaction to attain the point of sale discount, which allows small fleets to get the trucks at lower cost. And so, of course, more information on ISEF can be found on the website, californiahvip.org. And so this is a chart specifically for small fleets. Their voucher amounts are higher than all other large fleets and standard HVIP voucher amounts. And so for a Class 2B vehicle, you're eligible for a $9,000 voucher. And Class 8, you're eligible for $330,000. And for a Class A fuel cell, you can get up to $420,000. And so as of last week, ISEF still has about 26 million available. I think it was updated too. And there are multiple ways you can participate in the program. So again, if you are a company that's involved in the lease, rental, financing, subscription, or fueling of zero-emission vehicles, you can become an ISEF provider. And to start, you just have to complete an online application. And then dealers of the zero-emission trucks and buses can partner with the ISEF providers to participate in ISEF. And then more information on how to get started is available in the request guide online. And then, of course, for small fleets and other small businesses that want to operate medium and heavy-duty trucks, there are a couple ways that ISEF and CARB programs can help you get into these zero-emission vehicles. So, of course, if you have any other information, feel free to reach out to myself or the team, and specifically reach out to Brianna because she is the ISEF lead. All right, and now I will pass the mic to Cal Fleet Advisor.
Right. Good afternoon. Oh, I can't move that anyhow. So I'm Brandon Rose. I do a couple things. I am the lead of the zero-emission truck loan pilot that we'll talk about at the next slides after this, and then I also help with the case-by-case management of ISEF and risk reduction. Wanted to talk a little bit about Cal Fleet Advisor. I think it's a pretty cool program that we offer. It's basically free advisory services, and we started in August of 2023. It's run through CalStart, and the idea is that it's the non-financial side of the HVIP program. And so it's open to any size fleet can sign up. Let me jump to this next slide. Basically what we do is we connect a fleet with a personal advisor. So you have one point of contact to do sort of just that one-on-one assistance. And some of the things they can do, right, they can talk about the different like fueling options. So what are your charging options? We don't have a lot of hydrogen, but if you had hydrogen, it would be hydrogen fueling. Talk a little bit about like what are the incentives that are available. We sort of have the acronym soup of incentives, right? And we're talking about HVIP or more. They can give you a sort of a high-level overview of what's out there. And they can also help run you through sort of what are the different vehicle options available in that zero-emission space. and take the information. What does your fleet look like? What are the vehicles available, and run through those lists. The other things that they are really good, they have different resources, and they can help refer you over to like local agencies. So it could be like a local air district for incentives. It could be like an authority having jurisdiction if you need permitting, so like a city or a county as well, and just like different service providers. What else can they help? They can help with the funding. They can help you sort of prepare to apply for funding. If some of you may know, like the HVIP program, there's some detailed requirements. Like one of them, like what's your domicile address, being able to show that you've been in business for a year, and they can help you prepare those documents so you're ready to go, and you go in and see a dealer to help apply for that program. Generally, you would apply. You have a form. You can click through the QR code here. You'd send in the form and have somebody assign, but you can also just call with one-off questions if you don't want to go through the whole sort of signing up process. And they can just answer those quick questions that you may have in the zero-emission space if you just need some basics. There are some contacts here. There's the phone number, the email address, calfleetadvisor@californiahvip.org as well. And then Lupe is here over at the one-on-one tables. If you have any questions, she can help run you through all the details on CalFleet Advisor. So that's CalFleet Advisor. It's a really, I think, awesome program that we run because it's completely free of charge. You can just talk with them about what you're thinking and what your fleet looks like. Okay, so the next part I'm going to switch over to is the Zero-Emission Truck Loan Pilot Program. This is the program that I lead. It started coming up on a couple years ago now. It really builds on our old legacy truck loan program that we started in 2009. We had 43,000 conventional trucks come through that program over the course of its almost 15-year history. So this is the next step where it's dedicated just to zero-emission vehicles. Just sort of a little bit of details. One, you have to be a small fleet. The small fleet limit is 20 vehicles, and we upped that from the old legacy program from 10 to 20, so it matches the HVIP small fleet subset. That's something that was very purposeful about that. How it works is it provides loan support. It uses a loan loss reserve account, and what that means is that for every loan a lender gives to an eligible fleet and vehicle, we put 25% of that loan amount into an account. And if the loan has a default, the lender is allowed to come in and put in a claim for their losses, right? And so we don't dictate the underwriting standards, so the lender still uses its own underwriting standards. We do have a 20% interest rate cap as a maximum, although most commercial rates are lower than that. But I'd also mention it doesn't directly subsidize an interest rate to be below market rate. So the reality is the idea is that it focuses on people with what's called near bankable credit. So like if you have really poor credit, the lender may decide not to give you a loan even with the insurance of this. And if you have really exceptional credit, you may not need to use this program. You may be able to get a better rate. And like all government agencies, I certainly encourage folks to shop around, check out the different providers, the different lenders to make sure you're getting best deal possible as well. A couple other little things. What are the eligibilities here? You have to be zero emission, of course. It can be new or used, which is a little bit interesting as well. Class 2B and Class 2B and up. So it's a really broad-based program. And historically, right, when we've used this program when a fleet has a bunch of regulatory requirements, they don't qualify for any other incentives. The loan program has always been there to provide that little bit of extra help. It is open. We had $14 million allocated through 2 different funding plan cycles. We still have in the range of, I want to say, about $11 million available. So it is open. The application process, it's designed to be really simple for a fleet. It's pretty much all done through the lender, right? The fleet will contact a participating lender, right? So bank, credit union, other financial institution. They receive the loan. There is some labor attestation requirements. You do have to meet labor law, which goes with all of our programs. And then the lender will take your application form and they will go ahead and send it into the program and get enrolled into the program. So it's all transparent to the fleet. Program is administered by the California Pollution Control Financing Authority, or CPCFA, right? And that's part of the California State Treasurer's Office. So it's basically run through the California State Treasurer's Office. We also partner with, we have a couple of sort of sister programs. One of them is through the California Energy Commission. They help provide loans for zero-emission infrastructure. So if you need to get a loan for your charging, that is an option that could potentially support you. And then Southern California Edison, not so much where we are today. Edison has a program very similar. They focus a little bit more on strictly electric zero-emission vehicles, while ours could be electric or like hydrogen or other technologies. But generally, if you're in the Edison territory, you would apply to that program first because it has a little bit more funding than ours. But I just want to make sure you know that's out there as well. So multiple programs. And then just in terms of, last slide, program sort of context, how do you find the program? There's the program website is there. You can just Google, honestly, CARB Zero-Emission Loan Program is the quickest way to get over there. And on the webpage, there's a box there in the middle, says for fleets and owners, owner-operators. That's where you find the list of eligible lenders. So it's a PDF of eligible lenders for the program. And then the next box over for financial institutions is where the actual applications are, which is more designed for a lender. The applications and the claim forms and all the actual mechanics of the program as well. Those are the key things on here. One other note we have here, if you don't see your lender, you can certainly ask them to participate. If somebody is not on that list, feel free to let us know and we'll reach out to them. We can provide them some information. The program is completely free to both the lenders and the fleets, right? We pay any lender fee that's required, we pay for it, all in the background as well. So it's a really great opportunity. And then just the contacts, the program is operated day to day by the State Treasurer's Office, the CalCap program. So that's the email address, cpcfaoutreach@treasurer.ca.gov. And if you have any issues, you need to connect anywhere, I'm the program lead, Brandon Rose, and then my manager is Andrew Morgan as well. I overlap with the ISEF and HVIP program, so we're sort of a good source if you have any general questions, we can get you to the right place. All right, that's all I have for you, and I think we're going to move to the San Joaquin Valley Air District next. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, or, well, yeah, it's 12 o'clock now. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manny, and I will be presenting on behalf of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. So the district is responsible for the air quality management in 8 counties of the valley, so from the San Joaquin County all the way down to Kern County. For the truck replacement program, we currently have funding available mainly for zero-emission replacement, but we still do have some funding available for CNG. And the base eligibility for the program would be that your fleet has to be in compliance, has to be domiciled in the district, and then most have been owned and operated for at least 24 months and operate at least 50% in the district and at least 75% within the California state. And then regarding the program requirements, you do have to go ahead and provide us the documentation that's listed on the application, as well as entering into a contract with the district. Truck eligibility, your truck, again, has to be in compliance, but the old truck engine has to be at least 6 years old or older, so 2020 and older vehicles are welcome for the project. So for the truck replacement program, the funding, you can get up to $410,000 depending on the size of the truck. So as you can see, the larger the class, the bigger the funding for that. Now, the funding does have 3 types of limits. This determines how much fund you can actually get on your project. So one is a state funding limit, which again depends on the class of your vehicle. Then we have the cost effectiveness limit, and then we also have the fleet size percentage. So if you are a small business owner, if you have small fleets, so basically 1 to 20 trucks in your fleet, you are eligible for up to 80% of the eligible cost. And if you are a big fleet owner, so 21 or more trucks, you can get up to 50% of the eligible cost. And this is just an example of a funding table. As you can see, so some of the things that go into the funding, include how many annual miles you're putting on the vehicle. So the more you're operating the vehicle, the higher chance of you having a bigger incentive. So as you can see on there, you have class 4 and 5 operating 15,000 miles a year. And then for a small fleet, they're capped out at $81,400 for their incentive. Same thing with the large fleet. But if you are operating 30,000 miles a year, you can see that it's jumped up to $180,000 for the small fleet and $150,000 for the large. We also currently have Proposition 1B accepting applications, and this provides the grants for the goods movement operators to purchase cleaner equipment. So they have to be the old vehicle, or the old equipment does have to be currently in use and be in operable condition. With that being said, the solicitation is open until February 28th, but we are working on extending that out for at least another month. So, we have $5.9 million available for the funding, and this is for the diesel TRU replacement, which is the trailer refrigeration unit. And the equipment operation, the equipment has to be active for at least 10% of the operation within the San Joaquin Valley boundaries, and 75% in California. They must be fully in compliance with the Arbor system. And then the project life equipment commitment is 5 years to 100 or 10,000 hours. And then the other agreement would be that once you go ahead and get yours replaced, the older TRU must be scrapped. So what is the maximum you can get? So whichever is lower, right? So once we go ahead and get the pricing of your TRU, you will be funded depending on which is lower, whether it's 80% of the eligible cost or if it's $100,000. Now, we also have the electric yard truck replacement program, which is, they have to be 100% within the district boundaries, so they can be on and off road. And then their base eligibility, again, 100% within the district, owned and operated for at least 24 months, provide the support documentation that's going to be listed on your application. And then you must also agree to go ahead and dismantle the old truck once a new electric truck has been delivered. Now the eligibility, similar to the on-road truck replacement program, you do have to, the old truck engine is going to be 6 or more years old, so it's going to be 2020 and older as of right now. And then again, class 7 or 8 can be on and off road, and then you must agree to go ahead and operate it for the contracted life of the project, which can be 3 to 7 years. Funding, this one is a little bit more straight up, whatever your eligible cost is, we will be funding 45% of the eligible cost of the new truck, and the remaining funding is, so the funding we currently have in our available for this program is extremely limited. Further on, we also have the Zero-Emission Forklift Replacement Program. The eligibility and funding for this one, the LSI forklifts must be in operational condition and in compliance with the state, operate at least 50% within the district boundaries and at least 75% within the state of California. And then again, you have to go ahead and scrap the older forklift once a new one has been delivered during the claim phase. So The incentive amount for this one will be calculated at the maximum of 80% of the eligible cost of the new forklift. So to support the vehicles under our programs, we also have the Clean Vehicle Fuel Infrastructure Program. So this is to go ahead and fund if you want to build or expand or even convert your existing facility to zero emission. So if you're looking to build hydrogen fueling systems or stations and battery charging stations, this is the program that you can absolutely look into to see if you can participate. New facilities, if you're looking to build a new facility, once you go ahead and do that, you get the clearance from PG&E. Expansion, if you already have an existing facility, you want to go ahead and just add zero emission to it. Or converting, if you currently have any type of fueling system and you want to go ahead and convert that to zero emission, this program can absolutely be the one for your interest. The incentive for this one, it's up to 50% for all baseline projects. So that's the maximum. But depending on what type of project you're running with your fueling stations, as you can see, they can be funded a little bit higher. With the public school buses, battery charging and alternative fueling can receiving up to 100% of the cost, eligible cost. Now, the other funding programs we do have in here with the district, we have other business and then as well as residential programs. What you're looking at right now is the business programs, public agency programs, and the ag industry programs, which includes the ag tractor replacement for anyone that's interested in replacing their current tractors. Some of these programs, they are like the tractor replacement program. The applications are currently closed, but all the other ones we do have open right now, and if you want to go ahead and take a look at the slide, you're more than welcome to also just access our website, valleyair.org/grants, and see if any of those would be of your interest. As I mentioned, the residential programs, we also have the zero emission lawnmower replacement from fireplace and wood stove change out, clean air rooms for air purifiers, and then also something as if you've got an older vehicle, you can look into the Drive Clean program, or if you're purchasing a zero emission, there's some funding that we go ahead and provide there as well. For any questions regarding our programs, you're more than welcome to go ahead and contact. The slide, everyone listed on the slide here, Jocelyn and I were also set up at a table next to the clean truck check table, so you're more than welcome to stop by. If you have any questions, we can help there as well and then provide you with our contact information. And that would be all. Yes, sir. CNG, yes, but we are extremely limited on the funding with the current budget we have right now. So the 0.05, which is the 15 liters, that's the one that Cummins is producing right now. You could get up to $80,000. However, if we have funding available and you are able to find 0.02 NOx, because the replacement truck could be new or used. So as long as they meet a certain, eligibility criteria that you can find in our guidelines, which is a certain mileage. So for the Class 8 vehicles is 500. It has to be less than 500,000 miles. And then for that, and you were to find 0.02, you could get up to $160,000. Before 0.05 is $80,000. Up to $80,000. Yes, sir.
I'll speak on that. The tractor replacement program, I know that it's on stall right now. You're doing a lot of catch up on those. Pretty far behind. When do you expect that to start back up again?
Right now there's no, Jocelyn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any funding becoming available for this fiscal year for that program. So right now it's just catching up. And right now they're about 2 years behind on the applications. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
We're going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A for any of the incentive presentations that you've seen from CARB or from San Joaquin Valley. Any questions about any of the programs? Going once, going twice. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your presentations. We'll move on to our next subject, which is state and local government requirements.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew. I'm going to be covering the requirements for state and local governments. So state and local government fleets, they may be subject to additional regulations, including but not limited to clean truck check, innovative clean transit, off-road diesel-fueled fleets, and zero-emission forklift. Amendments to the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation were recently adopted, which would repeal parts of the regulation applying to federal or private fleets, including requirements for drayage trucks. The amendments are expected to be effective before January 2027. The state and local government fleets portion of Advanced Clean Fleets would remain subject to amendments under Assembly Bill 1594, which preserve CARB's authority to provide added flexibility for most public agency utilities. Consistent with its mission to reduce air pollution and protect public health, CARB encourages all to continue reducing emissions, and we look forward to partnering with you in these efforts. All right, so I want to go over the amendments. We had a board hearing on September 25th of last year. Repealed parts of the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation applying to federal or private fleets, including requirements for drayage trucks. Amendments are going to extend the 50% zero-emission vehicle purchase requirement by 3 years and delay the 100% zero-emission vehicle purchase requirement to 2030. This is also extending the exemption for small fleets and designated low-population counties until 2030. It's expected to be effective before January 2027, and we have more information on our website. All right, so who is this applicable to? So state or local government agencies, these are cities, counties, public utilities, special districts, local agency or district, and any department, division, public corporation, or public agency of the state of California. It's going to apply to any state or local government agency in California that owns, leases, or operates one or more vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating greater than 8,500 pounds. So this is going to be your Class 2B and up. So here's a list of excluded vehicles. School buses, defined by California Vehicle Code 545. Emergency vehicles, defined in California Vehicle Code 165. Vehicles awaiting sale, military tactical vehicles, historical vehicles, dedicated snow removal vehicles, certain two-engine vehicles, heavy cranes, transit vehicles subject to the Innovative Clean Transit Regulation, and vehicles subject to the Zero-Emission Airport Shuttle Regulation. All right, so the default, or the first pathway under the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation, starting 2024 to 2026, 50% of purchases must be zero-emission or near zero-emission vehicles. Starting January 1st of 2027 and after, all purchases must be zero-emission vehicles or near zero-emission vehicles. So agencies, if you look to the right and you see the map, agencies in designated counties or divisions with 10 or fewer vehicles are exempt from the ZEV purchase requirements until 2027. However, these agencies still need to report, okay? 2035 and earlier model year near zero-emission vehicles will count as a full zero-emission vehicle. So there are amendments, but this is what is currently on the books. Now, this slide's going to look very similar to the last slide, but what I want to showcase, that 50% purchase requirement, those deadlines are going to be moved from 2024 to 2029. And then the 100% purchase requirement is going to move to January 1st of 2030 and after. So again, these are expected to be effective before 2027. Additionally, agencies in designated counties or divisions with 10 or fewer vehicles, they're going to be exempt from the requirements until 2030. But I do want to remind you, I do want you to note that you still need to report into truckers. All right, so for the reporting date, state and local government agency fleets, they're going to be using the Truck Regulation Upload Compliance and Reporting System. So this is our truckers database. Initial reporting deadline was April 1st of 2024 until 2045. So once you've made your account, any changes, any added vehicles, any permanently removed vehicles, any backup vehicles that exceed the allowable mileage, and any conversions, ZEV conversions, they'll need it to be reported within 30 days of occurrence. Now, for some considerations for the ZEV purchase schedule. Existing compliant internal combustion vehicles can be operated indefinitely. So with this option, there is no useful life retirement. Early excess action credits. So any ZEVs purchased early or in excess of the purchase requirement count 1-to-1 towards future combustion-powered vehicle purchase. So if you're purchasing in excess of that 50% requirement, this is where that kicks in. Compliance is going to be assessed at the end of each calendar year. And then any vehicles, non-transit vehicles owned by transit agencies subject to the Innovative Clean Transit Regulation, they're going to be exempt from the purchase requirement and the reporting requirement through January 1st of 2030. ZEV milestones option, this is going to be the second pathway. It's available to state and local government agencies, provides flexibility to comply regardless of vehicle age or mileage. And this is going to be a phased-in approach based on ZEV, zero-emission vehicle suitability by vehicle type. And these are going to be milestones, and it's going to be a percentage of your total California fleet. Annual reporting deadline for this pathway is going to be February 1st. And agencies can opt in permanently through truckers until January 1st of 2030. And then you must waive your right to statutory useful life if you use this option. All right, so I have a table here. There's some percentages at the top, and notice there's some years throughout the table. These percentages are going to apply at these deadlines. And I'm going to go into further detail on the next slide and break it down a little further. So we have group 1. We have box trucks, vans, 2-axle buses, yard tractors, and light-duty delivery vehicles. And for this example of 100 vehicles, 60 vehicles are going to be in group 1. And then group 2, work trucks, day cab tractors, pickup trucks, and 3-axle buses, we're going to have 20 vehicles in this group. And group 3, sleeper cab tractors and class 8 specialty vehicles, we're also going to have 20 vehicles in this category. So what I want to highlight is that bottom row where it says ZEV milestones. Out of 100 vehicles, if we start at that first deadline in 2025, 10% of group 1 is going to need to be zero-emission vehicles, okay, for a total of 6. And if we move over to the next column, 25% requirement in 2029 for group 1, that's going to be a total of 15 vehicles. In group 2, we have a 10% requirement with 2 vehicles, totaling 17 vehicles, okay? Now, you can play with these numbers. You can have 2 vehicles in group 3 and 15 vehicles in group 2 for a total of 17. You can have 17 total vehicles in group 1 or 17 vehicles in group 2. Okay, as long as that bottom row equals 17 vehicles in your overall fleet, then you've met that milestone, okay? And this is gonna gradually get more aggressive with Class 8 specialty vehicles and sleeper cab tractors as the years go by. Now for exemptions and extensions, there's quite a few to choose from, but these are gonna be used for fleets that, for things that happen outside of the fleet's control. So we have a ZEV infrastructure delay extension. So extends compliance for up to 5 years for delays during planning and construction. So if you have a natural disaster that occurs and damages your infrastructure, the construction, or if you have a change in general contractor, things that are outside of your control, this is where that the extension would come in. We also have a ZEV purchase exemption. On our website, we have a streamlined ZEV purchase exemption list. You can buy ICE vehicles if a zero-emission vehicle is not available in same configuration and weight class. So the online list that we have, it's just a way to streamline the process. And then last, we have a daily usage exemption. You can buy internal combustion engine vehicles if available battery electric does not meet the fleet's mileage or power needs. So if you also, if you're considering the daily usage exemption, this also counts for fuel cell. So not just battery electric, but fuel cell, but it uses a mileage for fuel and a mileage for energy. And then at the end, we have a transit agency exemption. So any transit agencies here, they're going to be exempt until 2030. And then here we have our official email for the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation. It's going to be zevfleet@arb.ca.gov. We're always taking questions. Any specific fleet questions that you have, send us an email and we'll be able to help you out. Okay, any questions? No questions? All right. We have a table right over here, so if you guys think of something later, come on over and come see us. Thank you.
All right. Let's talk about the in-use offer diesel fuel fleets regulation then. We'll talk about a background, the amendments, and resources that will help you out follow the reg. So, CARB's ORD program has been in effect since 2008, and the applicability of this program is vehicles with diesel engines that are 25 horsepower or more, construction, mining, industrial equipment, and others. Some two-engine vehicles as well, work over rigs. It has a declining fleet average emission target, and it also has ban on adding tier 0, 1, and 2 vehicles. Report and label all vehicles, idling limits, and these were like the original restrictions, but we will talk about what we changed in 2022 as well. So the California Air Resources Board adopted amendments by the Office of Administrative Law on October 1st of 2023, and we got the waiver later on as well. So it includes tier phase out, expansion and ban on adding vehicles, renewable diesel usage, contracting requirements, and voluntary zero emission as well. The offered engine standards. The engine tier correlates with the emission standard established by the US EPA and California Air Resources Board. CARB recommends that fleets check the emission control label in the engine for engine tiers. So each of your off-road diesel vehicles should have an engine label in the engine block. If it's not readable, you can always request a new one from the manufacturer, and they have to give it to you. This is the tier phase-out schedule. So large fleets, which are 5,000 horsepower or more, or actually above 5,000 horsepower, will follow the tier 0 schedule. At this point, tier 0 should be out of the fleet. Tier 1 is what is implemented right now. So the Tier 1 also needs to leave this year. And in January 1st of 2028, Tier 2 needs to leave. And there is schedule for medium fleets. So medium fleets started with Tier 0 this year, and it will follow. Small fleets will have later schedules as well. There's also an expansion and ban on adding vehicles. So at this point, large and medium fleets can only add Tier 4 final equipment. Small fleets can still add Tier 4I for a couple more years. And if you have a fleet that is less than 500 horsepower, you can still have Tier 3, actually Tier 4I or newer, but their restrictions or the requirements for ultra small fleets are very different than the other sizes. They're not as stringent. They'll also begin in January 1st, 2024. Fleets will also be prohibited from adding a vehicle with a Tier 0 engine in the ones that have flexibility. So for example, previously dedicated snow removal or emergency vehicles or job corps could add older pieces. Now they cannot add any more Tier 0. They can still add Tier 1 or above, but it's specifically just for snow removal, permanent snow removal, emergency job corps. Renewable diesel requirements. So renewable diesel is a transportation fuel produced for non-petroleum renewable sources. Fleets required to use renewable diesel starting on January 1st of 2024. So if you have an off-road diesel fleet, you probably noticed that we started asking for a renewable diesel affirmation. You have to submit that before you can submit your ROR, which is the annual reporting. The reason for that is because of this requirement. You should be using renewable diesel if available. If it's not available, or if you are in an area where it gets really cold, there are some exemptions for that. And you should be able to apply to them and mark them in the form that we are asking you to submit as well. Fleets must attest that they are in compliance and keep records and demonstrate compliance as well. We don't need the records, you just have to keep them, and if we ask for the records, then you will provide them. And there are some exemptions. Renewable diesel usage exemptions. So inability to procure is one of them. So if you have a fuel provider that you have a contract with, and that fuel provider doesn't have renewable diesel, then you will need to ask in writing that they tell you, why they can't provide you renewable diesel. As long as you have that, you can apply to the inability to procure. There's also 100% Tier 4 final. So if your whole fleet is Tier 4 final, or let's say you have Tier 4 final in your fleet, but you have 2 Tier 3s, but you put them in permanent low use, you don't have to use renewable diesel, because those 2 that are not Tier 4 final are in permanent low use. You can designate, if you're designated captive attainment area fleet or vehicle while operating in a county listed under the captive attainment definition section, it's also exempt from that. And then cold temperature. So cold climate and intermittent low temperature locations are also exempt. We have contracting and prime contractor requirements. So the contracting requirements, you have to obtain a valid certificate of reported compliance, so what they call a certificate, for any fleet hire and their listed subcontractors. If that fleet is specifically renting equipment only, then they could either tell you that they don't have any equipment and they're renting all of it, or they could ask their rental fleet for their certificate of compliance. They shall not enter into contract with the fleet that does not have a valid certificate. There's also a webpage where you can check whether a fleet is in compliance with the off-road diesel rule. All you need to do is enter either their doors ID or the name of the company. There are exemptions for emergency operations. They have to keep records, and there's attestation by the fleet. It's also applicable to all contracting entities, public works awarding bodies, and prime contractors. And we also have the prime contractor requirements. They have to report observed noncompliance to CARB, such as unlabeled vehicles or fleets without a valid certificate. There's a disclosed ownership information to CARB at the job site, and post signage with off-road diesel program information at the job site. If the job site is more than 8 days, then they should post the signage. And we have an example of the signage in our webpage, so you can actually just print it out and post it at the construction site. Signage available for download in our webpage. And this is requirements for prime contractors only. We have voluntary zero-emission flexibility, vehicle to vehicle. So for each zero-emission vehicle adopted in your off-road diesel fleet, you may continue to operate a Tier 1 or a Tier 2 vehicle for 2 additional years beyond the phase-out. So if you were planning already on buying a zero-emission equipment to replace one of your pieces, you can also extend the life of one of your vehicles, old vehicles. Must perform the work of a diesel equivalent, must be similar max power rating as the combustion engine vehicle, and it must report vehicle information to CARB as well. So you will have to report your zero emission equipment in the door system, even though it's zero emission, if you want to use the extension. There is also an alternate compliance pathway through zero emission technology application called Zeta. So the Zeta, it's a little bit, it's kind of like going above and beyond, I would say. You have to be compliant at the time of submittal. You have to submit 4 months prior to the next compliance date. Then you have to turn over to zero emission 15% of your fleet by 2030, 50% of your fleet by 2035. And again, this is not mandatory. This is just if you were planning on going towards zero emission. Zeta must include vehicle turnover, ZE acquisition, list of milestones, and estimated completion dates. And there is an annual Zeta update. So all milestones complete, we will check it every year. If you are on track and you're meeting what you said you would do, then we will go ahead and approve it and you can continue your plan. This just means that you don't have to follow the phase out requirements because you will eventually turn over up to 50% of your fleet to zero emission. If you are not meeting those milestones or are behind or have not made any progress, then that could be revoked, and then you have to immediately comply with that year's and annual requirements for your fleet. Changes to low use, this is very important. So in the past, we had year-by-year low use and we had permanent low use. So fleets could go in and out of low use if they wanted, and if they wanted credit for a piece of equipment, then they could put in permanent low use. Year-by-year low use does not exist anymore, so that we only have permanent low use starting on January 1st, 2024. So this year, you probably noticed that when you're trying to submit your annual reporting form and you had something in year-by-year low use, it won't let you submit the ROR until you change the designation to either permanent low use or you take it out of low use. And then you can take it out of low use as long as you're in compliance with the requirement, but if you need that piece of equipment to be in low use, to be in compliance with the regulation, then you have to put it in permanent low use. And at that point, it means that it cannot go over 200 hours a year or 600 hours in a 3-year rolling period. If it goes above that, then it has to be sold out of the fleet. So it needs to leave the fleet at that point because it does not meet the add-in vehicle requirements. Low use tier 0 vehicles do phase out on January 1st of 2036. So for the rest of the tiers, tier 1, tier 2, that have to be phased out, if you want to keep them longer while you're trying to purchase new equipment, you can put them in permanent low use as long as they stay below the 200-hour limit. And you can keep them as long as you want. But the tier 0, if you put it in permanent low use, you can only keep it until January 1st of 2036. After that, all tier 0 equipment that's in permanent low use has to leave. Other amendments. We have the emission control label. So if a fleet observes that the emission control label is no longer visible or readable, a new replacement label must be requested. And by law, they have to give it to you. Carryover back credits. Provide additional flexibility by allowing fleets to generate credits after the final target date. And then the newly reported fleets must meet new fleet requirements. So if you notice, if you're a large or medium fleet, I think it was 2023, was the deadline to meet your target, and if you were not meeting the target, you can continue to do the 10% turnover until you actually met the target. That will continue, but in 2023, if you had a ton of credit that you had accumulated, that expired and went away. But you can keep turning over equipment and you can reaccumulate credit to be in compliance with BACT. But just anything that was in your fleet up to then was erased pretty much. And then for small fleets, that happens in 2028 as well. So if you have credit, it's better for you to use it now and then start turning over equipment after that. Because in 2028, all the credit that you have accumulated, if you haven't used it, it just goes away. And then the funding resources for off-road diesel equipment, which you probably heard in the presentations before. We have the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Program, CORE. We have a Carl Moyer, and then you could also go and talk to your local air district and see what kind of funding opportunities they have for your equipment. Anytime that you're looking for equipment, you probably would want to contact your local air district first because the fund goes through them. So we get the money, we give it to the air districts, and they are the ones to decide which projects get the money. In CORE, it does come from us, so there's a voucher program. It's a first come, first serve, so you have to be ready when it opens up, and that one does go through CARB. And then program resources, there's the off-road program regulation page. We have the contractor site poster, it's the second link, and then the certificate validation page is the last one, which is where you can look up if a fleet is in compliance or not. And this is our contact information, so if you need anything, if you want to look at any FAQs or any forms that you need to fill out and send us, it will be in the first link. The off-road zone also has information as well. The Doors hotline, so that's our direct hotline. So if you have any questions about off-road diesel, LSI, or zero-emission forklift, you call the Doors hotline. Same with the email. If you have any questions about those three, you email there. And then this is my coworker's email. So if you have Zeph questions, he will be the person. But if not, just the Doors email will be fine. Any questions?
Not related to that. How can we get a email PowerPoint of the presentations today?
Oh, you could just email the Doors email, and we could send you the presentation. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can send them out to the attendees too. So.
That'd be helpful.
Okay.
The diesel requirements. Why are we being forced to use renewable?
So renewable diesel is actually a lot cleaner, and it's the same job diesel that the regular diesel is. So if you don't need any new infrastructure, it will be the same. It's just you can replace one for the other. It's actually a lot cleaner for older piece of equipment. Now, we don't require it if your fleet is all Tier 4 final because it doesn't make much of a difference in a Tier 4 final. But in a Tier 2, Tier 3, or Tier 1, it makes a huge difference in the emissions.
So we're all final tier right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing is lack of lubrication in R99. And so so you're wearing out parts constantly, and the emissions can't keep up, and you're wearing out the emissions, the high pressure pumps, and it's just wearing these trucks out. So there's got to be a better resolution on fuel consumption and not wearing our trucks out.
So at this point, I think the oldest studies that we had, it doesn't really seem to say that they make a huge difference on how the equipment performs. But if you have all Tier 4 final, then at that point, you don't have to use renewable diesel if you don't want to. So if all of your fleet is Tier 4 final, and if only a few pieces you have are not Tier 4 final, and you put them in permanent low use, then that requirement goes away for you, so you could use regular diesel if you want.
So as far as reporting of renewable diesel, is there I'm guessing that because all your equipment shows Tier 4 final, you won't have to
so there is a part in the form, in the renewable diesel form, that says I am compliant with the renewable diesel requirements, or I'm using one of the exemptions, or, oh, my whole fleet is a Tier 4 final. So you check that box, you still sign the form, and you still submit the form. But, yeah.
My colleague over here is asking me, what is BACT credits? What is that?
Backed credit?
Yeah, back.
So every time that you turn over older equipment, and it has to be done in order of back, meaning your older equipment needs to go first in order for you to get credit. So when you, let's say you retire a Tier 1 piece of equipment that is 200 horsepower, you get 200 horsepower credit in your account. And so you are accumulating that, and then let's say that 1 year you don't meet your target by like 0.1. And so instead of meeting the target, you can use your back credit. So the back credit, you have to turn over 10% of your fleet. So if the amount that you need to comply with the reg, let's say it's a total of 800 horsepower, and you have 1,000 back credits because of old equipment that you have retired or put in permanent low use, then you're compliant for that year because you're compliant with backed.
And the vehicles that you're speaking of that would be calculated in hours, are those, what type of vehicles as an example are we talking about? Are those
The offered equipment that you have listed in your offered diesel fleet. So when you retire equipment there, the system tracks all that. So it knows that you retire a piece of equipment, it knows what horsepower that piece of equipment is, and automatically gives you that credit into your account.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason. I'm an air pollution specialist for the off-road implementation section. I'm one of the lead staff for implementing the zero-emission forklift regulation that recently took into effect on January 1st, 2026. So this presentation will be on the zero-emission forklift regulation overview, specifically for state and local government fleet requirements. So this regulation does not apply to private entities. So the zero-emission forklift regulation was approved for adoption in June 2024 as a near-term action intended to help California meet its air quality and climate goals through the zero-emission technology implementation in forklifts. The regulation will achieve emission reductions of pollutants and greenhouse gases by requiring the phase-out of forklifts using large spark ignition LSI engines, such as those running on propane and gasoline. Almost half of California's forklifts already use zero-emission forklift technology, and 400 plus zero-emission forklift models are available. As of now, decades of testing and advances in battery and fuel cell powertrains have been made, and cost savings from implementation of the regulation through 2043 are estimated to provide a cost savings of $7.5 billion in health benefit savings, $2.7 billion in net fleet cost savings, and lastly, currently there are about 80,000 zero-emission forklifts in operation in the state. So Class 4 and Class 5 LSI forklifts that are propane, natural gas, or gasoline fueled are subject to this regulation. Class 4 forklifts have solid or cushion tires that are operated on dry and smooth surfaces like indoor warehouses, while Class 5 forklifts have pneumatic tires, are operated on rough or uneven terrain, and can be used indoors or outdoors. Starting on January 1st, 2026, fleet operators subject to ZEF regulation may not acquire LSI forklifts, but may continue to purchase new 2025 model year LSI forklifts up until the end of January 1st, 2027. From 2028 through 2038, fleet operators will be phasing out their LSI forklifts by the oldest model year, and fleets are required to initiate discussions with electric utility providers by March 31st, 2026 regarding necessary upgrades and submit the correspondence. I'll provide some more information on that in later slides. Lastly, as a note, the California state and local government fleets shall comply with the zero-emission forklift regulation. CARB has not sought authorization for the zero-emission forklift regulation from the US EPA and will not enforce the regulation against any private fleets. This is the reporting timeline for state and local government fleets. So by March 31st, 2026, you should initiate discussions with your electric utility provider and submit the correspondence to CARB via the ZE Forklifts email by your initial report date. Initial reports are due by April 30th for large fleets. Those are fleets with 26 or more LSI and zero-emission forklifts, and September 30th for small fleets. Starting on January 1st, 2028, large fleets should be phasing out their Class 4 LSI forklifts. Small fleets will be phasing them out on January 1st, 2029, but they must opt into this alternative phase-out schedule. And large and small fleets will be phasing out their Class 5 LSI forklifts beginning on January 1st, 2030. Annual reports are due each year thereafter from the initial reports, so April 30th for large fleets and September 30th for small fleets. And just to let you know, we do have reporting webinars. We'll be going over the same information that I'm going over today, but also I'll be going over a step-by-step guide on how to complete your initial reports. March 11th from 10 to 12 are for large fleets, since April 30th is the due date for initial report for large fleets, and small fleets will have their webinar on July 22nd. You don't have to be a large or small fleet to join any of these webinars. You can join either one of them. I will guide you step by step on how to complete your report. Initial discussions with the electric utility providers. So fleet operators shall contact their electric utility provider by March 31st regarding any potential electric service installations or upgrades. Fleet operators must provide the address of California locations where LSI forklifts are operated, and for each location, an estimated number and type of chargers to be installed, power requirements of any infrastructure necessary to be installed, if applicable, other new sources of anticipated power demands during phase-outs, and lastly, the electrical load profiles depicting typical electricity usage on an hourly, daily, and monthly basis. You can find out more information about what information to submit to your electric utility providers in Section 3006C of the regulation text. Moving on to the forklift model year phase-out schedule. Looking all the way on the left column is the phase-out schedule for large fleets with Class 4 forklifts less than or equal to 12,000 pounds. So their phase-out date will begin on January 1st, 2028, and start with 2018 model year and older forklifts. They should all be phased out by January 1st, 2028. On January 1st, 2031, they should have phased out all of their 2019 to 2021 model year LSI, Class 4 LSI forklifts, and so on and so forth. For the third column, we have small fleets, or the alternative phase-out schedule. Again, small fleets will have this option, but they need to opt into this in order to utilize this schedule. It'll delay their phase-out by 1 year, and it'll start with 2016 model year and older forklifts and moving on from there. Class 4 forklifts that are greater than 12,000, have a lift capacity of greater than 12,000 pounds will be phased out on January 1st, 2035 for 2025 model year and older. For small fleets using the alternative phase-out schedule, their 2025 model year and older Class 4 forklifts that are greater than 12,000 pounds can be phased out on January 1st, 2038. And looking at the last column is for Class 5 forklifts less than or equal to 12,000 pounds. This is subject to all fleet sizes. So starting on January 1st, 2030, all fleet sizes should be removing their 2018 model year and older Class 5 LSI forklifts. This is just a little overview of the phase-out timeline, just showing that large fleets will be phasing out their Class 4 forklifts between 2028 through 2035. Small fleets have an extra year, and their phase-out date is phase-out year is extended till 2038. And Class 5 subject to all fleet sizes between 2030 through 2038. Now, there are some exemptions and extensions. They provide flexibility and allowed forklifts to be operated beyond the phase-out date as long as they're eligible and still within or designated as such. So low-use forklifts are used less than 200 hours per year. If they're used less than 200 hours per year and they need to be phased out by the upcoming compliance date, you can designate them as low use. As of right now, I would not put any forklifts into an exemption until January 1st, 2027. That's the year when you guys should be putting equipment in exemptions so they don't get phased out on the January 1st, 2028 year. Dedicated emergency forklifts are used by state and local government agencies only for emergency operations, but they can also be used less than 200 hours per year for operations other than emergencies. San Nicolas and San Clemente Island exemptions are only for the U.S. Department of Defense. Infield forklifts are for forklifts that are used in agricultural or forestry operations more than 50% of the time. Ag crop preparation service fleets would not be included in this. Lastly, we have extensions. If a zero-emission forklift is not delivered by the upcoming compliance date to replace an LSI forklift, then that LSI forklift can be continued to be used until that zero-emission forklift is delivered. Infrastructure construction and infrastructure site electrification. If your site needs construction for fueling or charging stations and they cannot be completed by the deadline, fleets can use this extension to extend their fleet's facility location so those forklifts don't need to be phased out until the construction is complete. If your site needs to be electrified, for example, your panel capacity is not great enough to charge your ZEVs, then you can use the infrastructure site electrification, but that determination needs to be done by the electric utility provider. Lastly, operational extensions are for LSI forklifts, for zero-emission forklifts that do not meet the needs of a currently used LSI forklift. You can use this extension to continue to operate your LSI forklift until a zero-emission forklift model is available to complete the needs of the currently operated LSI forklift. And we have a link to extension fact sheets below. There will be templates at the bottom of that of each fact sheet so that fleets have information, the information they need to submit to ZE forklifts. And lastly, this is the contact page. We have our zero-emission forklift regulation website, the DOORS reporting website, our ZE forklifts at arb.ca.gov email, and the phone number will be linked to the DOORS. So that would be the 877-593-6677. If there's any specific questions relating to DOORS and the ARTs cannot answer, you can certainly ask for my name. My name is Jason, and they will transfer the call to me so I can answer those questions. But other than that, this is the Q&A section. Do I have any questions? Yes. Is that, how is it fueled? Diesel fueled? Diesel fueled forklifts that are 25 horsepower greater, self-propelled, and has an off-road engine would be subject to the off-road diesel regulation. Yep. Going once, going twice. Yes, of course. All right. And that is it for our presentations. I think I'm going to hand it back to Michael.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. So to answer your question, we will be sending a thank you email, and we will have a PDF version of the PowerPoint slides for everyone to review. So we'll be sending that in the next day or two. As for that, I'm going to go through a slide. If you haven't taken the evaluation, there's a QR code I'm going to put up right now. If you get an opportunity, we'd really appreciate your feedback. We have some codes outside as well. And for those that are leaving, just a reminder to scan your initial ticket. And we also have a bunch of tickets near the registration table. That's the second QR code you need to scan to exit this venue. So you don't need to pay for parking, just scan those 2 tickets. And yeah, like I mentioned, we'll definitely reach out, and we really appreciate everyone taking the time out of the day to come out to our one-stop event. Thanks, everyone. Have a safe travels.